Before the merriment of commencement commences, please accept our apologies. Due to a mysterious microphone malfunction, AD's audio in this episode is occasionally a tad muffled. We hope it doesn't bother you too much and can assure you that AD's silky tones will be back to their usual smooth, ear candy warmth in no time. Now, grab your space beams and enjoy Zapped to the Past.
Hello and welcome to episode 33 of Zapped to the Past. My name is Adrian Mills and I'm joined as ever by Graham Raddings. If you haven't listened before, this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. We are using the magazine Zapped 64 as a monthly guide for the games to focus on, but we are in no way affiliated with Zapped 64 itself. This week, we're going to be looking at September 1986 and the first batch of games reviewed in issue 17 of Zapped 64, along with what was also going on in UK music. Graham, crank up our spleens to fever pitch and tell us what's coming up.
In this Chinese takeaway set meal for 300 of an episode, we don our armour, grab our lances and stab some zombie ghoulies in the spine-chilling Ghosts and Goblins, go for a murderous sprint across the assassin-strewn platforms of Mission AD before attempting to delicately navigate a jet fighter through some fiddly caves in the claustrophobic Caverns of Eriban. We also go full-on medieval and smash each other's heads in with the clobbering night games, train to become the world's crappiest assassin with Ninja Master before attempting to fly anything in the 10-print basic lunacy of the truly terrible Jet Strike mission. If your eyes are in fact not bigger than your belly and you've got room for another spring roll and a chicken ball, we also go full sewer robot and scoot around the broken isometric pipes of Floyd the Droid, find some robo-legs, shoot some webbing, and otherwise clamber around the creature-filled world of Arac, and bemoan the you had everything you needed missed opportunity of Danger Mouse in Double Trouble. Finally, we blast our way through the impressive budget action of Warhawk, ask some searching questions about Sensible Software's aviary-based shoot-em-up Galaxibirds, before finally sitting back, hitting the toilet, and taking a gargantuan power dump with the laxative Beer Belly Burt's Brew beers. I can tell you, that lot ain't gonna flush. 80, fetch my marigolds and power plunger. I'm going in.
Sweet. So what is coming up? What's first? I know what's first. Do you know what's first?
I do.
Tell me you know what's first, because you're going to talk about what's first.
The first game is
the gold medal. The gold medal.
The gold medal.
The gold medal game for this issue.
Shifty looks.
Dun, dun, dun. Or should it be? That should be in a harpsichord. I can't do a harpsichord impression. Anyway, first.
No, I couldn't. Neither can I.
Neither can you, as it turns out.
No.
No. Ghosts and Goblins. Graham, what's Ghosts and Goblins?
Ghosts and Goblins is a very successful, hugely successful Capcom arcade. And the premise of the game is very simple. You are a Sir Arthur, the knight in shining armour, who has to rescue his beloved princess from the clutches of the evil goblins and ghosts. But in principle, a big goblin. So she's been kidnapped. You've got to kind of go through a series of levels in order to and fight zombies and all these other creatures in order to rescue her from the evil. I think it's the Princess Prin, I think is the name. And the person that's kidnapped them is Astaroth.
Hang on, is that really true?
Yeah.
Princess Prin?
Yeah, it's Princess Prin who's been kidnapped by Astaroth, king of the demon world. You got to learn to read between the lines with this stuff. Anyway, So that is the premise of the game, and it's an arcade game. So it has arcade things attached to this game. So 1, arcade difficulty. Top notch in this one. It's a real killer, really difficult arcade game. Number 2, kind of nice sort of sprite design and graphics. The arcade's quite good in that respect. So a lot of heritage, a lot of nice stuff to look at, great music and interludes, and it's quite a complete arcade. So we come to the Commodore 64 version, and at this particular stage, it ain't bad. So the logic of the game is that you control with the joystick, you control Sir Arthur, you got to jump, and you end up with a series of weapons. You start off with a lance, and you can actually, some of the zombies are carrying around giant caskets or giant vases, essentially. And
who knows?
you can shoot those, and sometimes they release goodies, and sometimes they release extra weapons. The weapons kind of progress through. There's a flame, a shield, a dagger, and an axe, I believe, as well. And they all have kind of different... I wouldn't say strengths, I think that's the wrong word, but some of them have a kind of gravitational thing, so they drop down like the flame and it kind of carries on across the floor. The shield is kind of super fast and the daggers are super fast. Anyway, long and the short of it is you get different weapons to choose from. And you progress from left to right, jumping, avoiding, climbing up ladders, shooting the zombies, avoiding the killer flowers that fire things at you, in order to get to the end, fight the boss, and then off to the next level you go. So that's the arcade game, that's the Commodore 64 game. Now, this is a good conversion, but it's not a complete conversion. So this I think this is kind of problem number one. So it's not all there. This is actually, the arcade actually has, I think it's 6 levels and a boss fight at the end. And this version has 4 levels, and the boss fight isn't actually the real boss fight from the game. Because in this version, you actually fight a snake, which is not the thing that's kidnapped the Princess Prin Prin. So it kind of feels like you're being sold short a bit, and the levels are a bit shorter, and they're not in the same order as the arcade. And so it feels like it's a bit of an arcade light version on the Commodore 64. Now, there are good things about it. So the sprite design and some of the other things are kind of captured, and it does kind of look a bit like Ghosts and Goblins, the arcade. But because of the changes in the actual design of the game, for example, the level 3 and 4 are switched on the Commodore 64 from the arcade. So that allows that kind of final snake boss thing. And there's kind of an ascension in a tower in the arcade, which you don't get in this version. And I also have to say that there are bugs in this game. So this is a Chris Butler game, isn't it? And Chris Butler has got a good pedigree for games, although there is a really interesting interview with him in this particular issue of Zapped, where he kind of comes across as a bit of I just do it for the kind of cash and the job kind of thing. So, he's a coder for hire. He reminds me of a guy out of Game of Thrones, that guy that hangs around with Tyrion, who's kind of his sellsword. He just does it for the kind of thingy.
Bronn.
Yeah, he's kind of the C64 version of Bronn. So it's just like, even the questions is like, do you love the games you do? It's like, no, I don't have any affinity for the games I do. I just program it because I'm being paid. All right, that's okay. And if that's your thing, fine. And you know what? I've got no complaint about that. But if you've been asked to do a job, why do a half job if that's the case? Because this is a half job, and so is Commando, and that's another Chris Butler game. Now, it could be that time is a constraint, and I suspect that's the real reason behind this. But he makes a point of saying that he had plenty of time for this conversion. So, I don't know. But there are bugs in this game. So there are issues of quite poor collision detection. Sometimes you jump and it just seems to just die if you fall through and die. There's later in the game you can sort of fly through bits of the landscape, which you can use to your advantage, and some parts of it just completely bug out. And so sometimes the sprites appear in odd places when you die and you restart, because like the arcade, if you die towards the beginning of a level, you restart at the beginning of that level. But if you progress your way through to kind of a halfway point, you start from there. Well, sometimes it gets a bit crazy with that. So it's a difficult game to judge in some ways, because I really like all of the Ghosts and Goblins, Ghouls and Ghosts, all of those kind of arcade games are really, really cool. So my favourite arcade games they are. And so the 64 version isn't bad, but it isn't complete. A bit like Commando wasn't complete. And Commando got kind of pasted for that, whereas this has been heralded as like the super game. So I don't quite get the Zapped scoring for it. I don't. Because apart from anything else, the music in this game, by the way, is by Mark Cooksey, and it's good, but it's not the arcade music, which is better for the arcade. So, I don't get why they did that. And I suspect it's probably something to do with, again, with time and constraints. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the logistics of all of that. So this is a difficult game. Although, weirdly, when I went to replay the 64 version, I found it a lot easier than I remembered, because the levels are so short. So, and level 3 in particular, I just ran across the whole level. I didn't encounter an enemy, didn't really have to do anything particularly difficult. So I don't get how this is a gold medal. In fact, I would argue that this is an incomplete arcade and should have been sat in the kind of Rambo Commando score camp for me. But I do have an affinity for Ghosts and Goblins. This isn't a bad old version of the version of the arcade on the Commodore 64. It's just incomplete and kind of different to look at with a bit of music. So I like it. I played through this one. I completed it right the way through, something which is actually, I think, impossible in the arcade without actually wanting to claw your face off. So it's good that they fit all what they did in 64K, but as I'm sure we'll discuss in a moment, once you've sort of explained what you think about it, there's a better version that came out in the Commodore 64, which is kind of complete. But what did you think? Because I'm sort of thinking great, but not 97%, and certainly not gold medal.
Well, similar to your feelings on IK, International Karate, and its comparison to Fist, I yelled or my feeling is this is not better than Green Beret, previously reviewed in the previous issue, which only got 93%?
93 it got.
So,
I agree with you.
so this is, and Green Beret is a full conversion pretty much. Yeah, the levels are maybe slightly shorter, but it's all there. Everything. Cutscenes, interstitials, intro, everything. This is missing so much that it's, as I think you rightly say, Ghosts and Goblins Light. This is Bud Light. This is Miller Light. This is this is a half a game. This is half the game. There's not even the intro is there where the demon appears and picks up Princess Prin and takes her away. None of that's there. It's all gone, and I don't understand why. The title screen is different. It's a bit plainer. There's nothing really to it. The music is different and is not, like you said, it's good. It's good, but it's not 96% great. That's for certain. This is a good conversion. And I think that's where it tops out. It's good, but it's certainly not 97%. And I remember thinking that at the time, thinking I played through it because obviously they've given it 97%. This must be amazing. And I finished it at the time. On this playthrough, I didn't quite finish it. I gave it 3 or 4 goes, but on my third go, I got to almost the end of the 4th level. So within 20-25 minutes, I had nearly run through this again.
Yep.
And like my skills are not what they were when I was 14 years old. But
depends what your skills you're talking about. You can still steam a mean ham.
Well, that is true. And I can still yodel an alpine goat's socks off, which is always a sight to see.
And genuinely a real skill.
Absolutely. I've got better at that as I've grown older. My yodeling technique is spoken highly of in yodel circles.
And just as a complete aside, the Grimsby Yodeling Club is still looking for new members. AD is still literally the only member. It has been for the last 25, 30 years. Absolutely.
I stand sometimes in Ryby Square yodeling, waiting for people to join the club. Nothing to this day.
The police have often been called so many times.
Absolutely. Maybe I need to try it in my shiny disco pants. Wear them once more. Anyway, yeah. So this ghosts and yodelings, it's just not right, is it? The third, like you said, the third level is barren. There's nothing to it. There's a few floating platforms and some fire on a bridge, and loads of things that appear underneath it then fly downwards. Like
the fire that never was, because I was never menaced by it. It just kind of looked like it was going to do something and never did.
Never did anything. And it's quite easy, as long as you get to any of the bosses with your armor still on, you can just spam them.
Super easy, yeah. There's a bug in it as well there.
Well, they knock you, don't you? They hit you, take your armor off, but you've got invincibility for enough time to just hit them until they're dead. And then pick the key up and off you wander. Yep. It's okay. It's a decent conversion, but as I said, I'm looking at two arcade conversions, one from Konami, one from Capcom, reviewed in issue 16 and issue 17. One is almost perfect, and one is a bit of a buggy, incomplete release. I don't understand where they're coming from on this. I don't. It's not as. And I mean, I'm probably more of a. But the thing is, I'm probably more of a Green Beret evangelist than you are.
Absolutely, but I agree with you.
Whereas because you like Ghosts and Goblins more than Green Beret, I think that's your more your bag. And so it comes to something when you agree that these two conversions, one is undersold and one is massively oversold. And I don't understand why. I'm not going to say it's because there's an interview with Chris Butler in the magazine. I'm not saying that. I haven't said that, and I will never say that. But it's not Ghosts and Goblins. It's not Ghosts and Goblins enough. And as you rightly point out, we have another version of Ghosts and Goblins that has been made since.
We do.
And so maybe, do you want to say anything about that?
Well, yeah. And just before I do, actually, I've actually been sat since playing the C64 version. I replayed the arcade version as well. In fact, I played every version I could. No excuse really needed for me to play Ghosts and Goblins. I love it. And I was trying to think, what is the difference between this and Green Beret? Because they're the two big arcade conversions last month and this month. They're two great big arcade games. They're both huge arcade games. And I think in actuality, I think the problem is, and this is no disrespect to Chris Butler at all, but if you're a jobbing coder and you have no passion for the game you're making, no real love for it at all, then you end up with a Ghosts and Goblins for the C64 and a Commando like they've got. If you've got a bit of a passion and a heart for the game, you end up with Green Beret. Because you want to do, there's little bits you want to make sure you get it in there. I just think he just could, for whatever reason, he was given 6 weeks. That's what you get in 6 weeks of my time. There it is. And I don't know. I've never spoken to Chris Butler. I don't know him personally or anything like that. But I'm just thinking, anyway, later down the line, the nostalgia-based group, Nostalgia, by name,
Yes,
created. I don't know if they released or created this. So whoever did make this game, please forgive me for whomever coded it, recoded it, did all that stuff, because I'm not 100% sure of the details. However, there is a version of Ghosts and Goblins Arcade which was brought out separately, where they kind of took the original version and just completely bug fixed it, redrew all the graphics, redid all the music, redid all the levels. In fact, I would argue it's basically a new version of Ghosts and Goblins as it should have been done, and it's very impressive. All the graphics are there. Yes. All the level design is there. They're in the right order. All of the levels are there, including all the boss fights. All the interstitials are there, the in-between level parts, all there. It's all complete in one load. So I think that it was always possible given the time and obviously now, many, many years later, there's all sorts of modern tricks that you could probably throw into a Commodore 64 that perhaps weren't even known back in 1986. There's maybe no doubt about that, but I would recommend everyone go and download for free, which you can, from the CSDB, the database. You can download the Ghosts and Goblins arcade version from there, and the Commando version they've redone as well. I'm sure we'll talk about it another time, but go and download it, play the arcade version, because it's a much better, more complete version in every way, and actually is very good, which proves that had Chris Butler taken the time and effort, and an Elite perhaps not put as much pressure on him to release it just whenever it was done, had they taken the time that the developers took over Green Beret, they could have ended up with what became the nostalgia version of Ghosts and Goblins, but they didn't. They released a kind of a half version, Ghosts and Goblins Light. I think that got a gold medal is a travesty, and I have to say, I would put that in perhaps the 60s, 60% for me, because it's incomplete. I'm sorry, but it is. And Commando got, I think, 60-something. I don't think it did very well out of it.
I'll cut. Obviously, we cut Chris Butler some slack. It's still impressive, and it's still, like you said, doing things in 1986. Good. And the other thing with the nostalgia release is that there's, looking at the credits, there were 3 coders, there was 2 graphics artists. I think
there's a team.
So there's a full team there. Aside from someone else, Cooksey doing the music, Butler's done everything. He's graphics, coding, everything. So what he's done, produced in that amount of time, is pretty impressive, all on his own. And so I'm not. I don't want it to sound like we're being churlish and going, oh God, he should have done a better job. But maybe it is a time thing. But, he says I had loads of time to do it. So maybe it's all he could fit in 64K with the techniques they had back then. We don't know. But we're going to talk about another game in the next episode, which is we can look at arcade conversions around this time. But there's another one that'll start off next episode that we'll look at about arcade conversions that probably shouldn't have happened. And, it comes to a point where maybe trying to ram, with, a full arcade from, the end of 1985 or whenever Ghosts and Goblins came out, 1985, 1986, into 64K, maybe, there's, obviously it can be done, but with the techniques and tricks and techniques that were known at the time, maybe it was a step too far. Green Beret is only 4 levels, I guess, so there's 4 levels here, there's, comparableness to them. But one fits, one doesn't. You get what you if you choose to do a version like this, like Commando, if you choose to do an 8-level game, then put in 8 levels, because let's face it, Who Dares Wins 2 got 8 levels in.
Yeah, it did. And you know what? I suppose if I was going to relent a little bit, because I do feel like I've kind of had a go at Chris Butler a bit, and that's not my intention at all. I think if I was honest with myself a little bit, this is what I suppose is really an approachable, cheaper version of Ghosts and Goblins. So this is, this is as good as you're going to get in 1986. Okay, and it's not bad for that. And so it represents pretty good value, because the arcade wasn't accessible to everybody, and it is really, really hard. So you're going to be pumping, a lot of money into that to get anywhere near the kind of replay that you would get out of this. So I suppose I maybe cut it a bit of slack because of the time it's released. I suspect that even though he said he had plenty of time, in reality, it looked to me like it probably could have done with a few months more and maybe a couple of extra people. And there is that kind of whole reliance on the single coder back in 1986, the one guy doing everything, or the 1 or 2 people doing everything, the coder, the graphics and the music kind of team. And I get all that. So maybe I cut it a bit of slack because it is at least an accessible version on a much more inferior machine than an arcade, and it still retains much of the gameplay. But you know what? There's bugs in there that should have been ironed out. This should not be a gold medal. I'm sorry, Zap, but I disagree totally with that review score, and not for the only time in this episode, because, well, not certainly this episode, but in this issue of Zap, because I can tell you there's something very wrong with some of the scores in it, and it's something that's been happening for some time though. This isn't something new. I've mentioned it in at least the last 3 episodes that there's something kind of going wrong, and also I noted and also noted that people are noticing it in the letters to Zap as well. If you read any of the letters in the last 3 episodes, there's at least 1 or 2 saying, "What on earth are you talking about with these scores?" Sometimes you read them and you're like, "Are you mad?" And other times you read them and like, you kind of got a point. Now I I hesitate to lay the point of blame at pressure from editors or any of that. I don't know. I'm not working in news field and Zap 64 in 1986. I don't know. But there are games that are getting crazy scores and shouldn't, and there are games that are getting bad scores that probably should have got better. It seems a bit all over the place. But this is it reminded me of why I liked Ghosts and Goblins and why I really hated it. So there you go. That's what happens.
So there you go. That's Ghosts and Goblins. We do like it, but not gold medal like it.
Yes,
sounds about
absolutely.
Right.
Yes. I've got menaced by a chicken wrap.
He's not kidding, listeners. He really did.
I know.
That was, for want of a better explanation, I just saw the beginning to Grange Hill on the Zoom chat.
Yeah, with chicken.
On that blurry note, let us move on to our next game because we've spoken a lot about Ghosts and Goblins. So
we have.
There we go. It's all right, but it's not gold medal all right. So what's our next game? Our next game, from the team that brought us some other games, we have Mission AD. What is Mission AD? Right, well, Mission AD, we are into comedy name territory with Mission AD. Not in the actual title itself, but you play Ricochet, if you didn't know.
When I read it, I was like, oh, really? And there's other cheesy names.
Yeah, you play Ricochet. Well. There is, because you're out to foil the dastardly plan of General Office Rocker.
Oh, God. It is General Officer. Oh, dear.
It is General Office Rocker. So anyway, the plot behind this game is that not too dissimilar to Avengers Age of Ultron, actually. Scientists believe that we are under threat from galactic powers or whatever. So they decide to build a galactic defense system.
They always do.
They always do. But, it's for the good of humanity. But what it needs the cooperation of every country around the world. Unfortunately, General Office Rocker thinks that it's a trick of the capitalist scum to undermine the glorious country wherever that he comes from, probably Russia. And so he sends assassins in to kill the scientist involved in creating the defense system. Now, your job as Rick O'Shea is you are the ultimate assassin. So kind of like the spy hunter in Spy Hunter. You assassinate assassins. So you're sent into the building to assassinate the assassins who are there to assassinate the scientists. Are you keeping up? There's lots of assassins. All right. What this entails is you running from screen to screen, trying to avoid the shots of the robot defense force. I didn't mention them, did I? There's loads of robots that are moving around all these screens that also can't tell you from assassins from scientists. That's a bad robot defense force. No, never worry about galactic threats. We've got a wayward robot defense force here. Anywho, you run from screen to screen, trying to find the assassins in a big complex, and so it's kind of a flick screen, dual level, kind of like V, sort of in the way it's presented. Although it's fully 2D, it's not sort of pseudo 3D.
There's no locked doors.
That's kind of where it does. It's No, there are no locked doors, thank God. That's kind of where it's resemblance. But if you imagine V, it's similar to that. We'll look at another games. A few games have actually taken that sort of dual level thing on. Anyway, so you have a map which you can see at all times, and the assassins will show up as a glowing dot on that map as you move across the screens. Your dot will move towards them. There are 8 different districts for you to chase them through. They're the nightclub, statue park, the office, the library, docklands, cathedral, pipeworks, and greenhouse. You can transport between them, and if you imagine there's a cube, and each one of those takes up a little part of the cube, a square, and each one of those areas takes up a little part of the square. You kind of have to move between them because the glowing dots on the map, you've got to kind of go from place to place when you get into a teleport. Go from until one of the areas you're in is actually where they are. If you play it, you'll see what I mean, but it's kind of hard to describe. So you transport there, you chase them down, you find them, you shoot them, you head back. You get a total of 5. I think it's 5 to kill in the first on the first loop round. If you find all 5, kill them, well done. General Office Rocker sends more, and so on and so on and so forth on loop round until you lose all your lives and you die because you've got health and everything's shooting at you. So that's what you do. This is brought to us by the team who gave us Robin of the Wood. So this is Mark Dawson on design and code, Stuart Fotheringham on visuals, and luckily we now have Fred. I think it's Fred Gray. We have Fred Gray on music, and quite frankly, the music in this game is a stunner. It's brilliant. It's got such a pace. It's hummable. It's fast. it's another one of those tunes that lifts the game quite a lot. You play it with this music sort of thing, and you really get into it. You can really play it quite a lot because that tune just drives you along. The visuals are really nice. Stuart Fotheringham has a really, really good graphic style. He gets a lot of colour and definition and animation and feel, and they're really, really nice visuals. They're chunky, but they're not horribly chunky. They're well animated, just like Robin of the Wood was, and Nodes of Yesod, and other games that he worked on. And obviously Mark Dawson is a very competent coder because this all runs very fast. Everything's slick. Everything works as it should. And it's good, but it's not without its issues. So what are its issues? It gets a bit repetitive. There's very little to do beyond run from screen to screen and shoot stuff. And it's because it's very fast, because it never stops. It's very little time to pause. It can get repetitive quite quickly. Even though it's quite nice that if you shoot some of the robots, they stay dead when you move from screen to screen. It's very easy to just be getting shot all the time. It's very hard to dodge any kind of bullets or thingy, and very quickly your health will go down and you'll be dead and you've got to start again with 5 assassins, so that's a bit of a pain. There is the core of a really, really good game here, which I would really like, but it just needs what from my point of view would be a couple of changes. That is one way to get your health back. If you have some way to get your health back at all, so that would be really good. That would be just a really good, helpful thing. Alternatively, when you die, you didn't go back to the beginning and have to chase all 5 down again. Give me the choice sort of thing. That one of the two would have helped this game be a lot more accommodating, because having to kill all 5 in one go without losing all your health, because those robots are just everywhere and they're just shooting constantly and it's so fast and you're dead before you know it half the time. It just feels a bit punitive. Everything else around this game is great, presentation wise, visuals, music, design, the way it looks, the way it plays, from the title screen, from the opening music. It feels very Robin of the Wood. It's got a very Robin of the Wood title screen, and the way it does and goes into the game, it's very, very similar to that. It's just the constant depletion of health, that thing just kind of sucks the fun out of it a bit. It just needed a little bit more to it, I think, and would have been, an absolute classic. That's what I think. What do you think?
It's interesting, actually, isn't it, Mission AD? It wasn't a game I'd played a lot back in the day, so I came at this with kind of fresh eyes. It was okay, and it was fun. So I quite like the graphics. I quite like the look and feel of it. The pace was nice. It's fast. That was also to its detriment, because it felt like you weren't really controlling so much, because you weren't really given time to avoid things, or half the time. So you just kind of ran into stuff, and eventually, we were kind of being punished a bit. But all said and done, it was nice animation on the graphics. The graphics were quite good. The music's catchy but repetitive, but it is catchy enough, and it doesn't get annoyingly repetitive, so it kind of gets away with that. And I found it quite genuinely fun to play. Then once you master kind of navigating with the map and going up and down the lifts and going around, it didn't feel like there was a great deal of tactics to learn in this game. It was just kind of, don't get killed.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think that sort of leans into the kind of repetitive nature of it a bit. But I had fun playing it, and I think it isn't a game you're going to sit there for 12 hours and play, because I think you'd get very bored very quickly, because it is very samey. But it's a game that you'll play for a bit and try and get so far, and then you'll leave it for a while, and then you'll come back and you will come back to it. Because it is at least an all-encompassing, fully functional, working game with quite a nice little, story behind it as well. And so I enjoyed it. The music, Fred Gray's music is kind of a nice progression from what other stuff he's been doing. It's good. So I would recommend that it's worth a go. There are, unfortunately, I think, the only downside, if there is one, there seems to be a lot of games like this. Mm-hmm. Even in this episode, there seems to be quite a few, and even in the last episode, in fact, the last two, there was quite a few games where you were kind of walking around and either shooting things or searching for things. There's even more in this particular episode and the next one. So this kind of a theme that's starting to develop about these kind of sort of flip screen, dual layer platformers, and at least this one is successful in what it's trying to do and doesn't over-egg its pudding a bit. But I think it just suffers from kind of being a bit samey level on level. But you know what? No, we don't fire those kind of criticisms at arcade games that often. So
no, true, but it's not an arcade game, is it? It's a home computer game.
Yeah, no, it isn't. But the logic is, the heritage of these games is that kind of arcade logic for this particular one. I don't know. I never felt like I was exploring anything in great depth. I just kind of felt like I was, when I went from level to level, the graphics changed and they were nicely drawn.
Yeah,
but
they are very nice.
But it was still the same thing over and over and over again. But all said and done, I still had fun playing it, even with that kind of repetitiveness. I'd much prefer to play this to some of the other games we played, so I had a good time with it. And it was refreshing because I hadn't played it a lot, so that's quite nice. The score, 80%. Yeah, I think it's about right. Maybe they could have given it a bit higher based on their crazy scoring. Maybe it should have been a gold medal and 99% or something. But I think, no, 80 to 85 is probably about right for that.
Yeah, I think if there was a little bit of variety between the different areas, it's weird that you're in, because it's like, where did I say you're in? You're in nightclubs, statue park, offices, libraries, docklands. It seems odd that there are loads of robot guards around in all those areas. And maybe what would have been nice was that some of them were a bit more empty. So, because they would be, or different patrons, or, the nightclub had bouncers in, or that kind of, more suitable people within them to try and stop you. I don't know. Obviously, there's quite a chunk of game there, though, and there's quite a lot of different levels. And I like the way that they all interlock on that map. That's nice.
The map was clever, and I like the map, and I like the fact that you were kind of an assassin killing, because you had to kill a certain number of them, didn't you, over on each level?
Yeah.
And then when you killed them, you got the end of level, and then you went to the next one, and you had to kill a certain. The logic of it's quite good. Yeah. I think this could be a part of a bigger game, really. But either way, it's fun. All the same, and it was a bit of fun, so I did enjoy it.
Yeah, it's all right. There you go. That's Mission AD. So there you go. That's that one played. Let's move on to our next game. Oh, God, Lord. Caverns of Eriban. So, just as an aside, by the way, dear listeners, we have Cheapest Creepers again within these couple of episodes. So Zapped had a budget section again, which we've split out into its Cheapest Creepers sections. But they also reviewed within the main body of the magazine other games that were in the budget range, that were not part of the budget range or cheapest or whatever. So we're not quite sure. This is a budget game, $1.99, but wasn't in the budget section. Should it have been in the budget section? Should it have been in any section? Graham, tell us.
Well, at $1.99, it's cheap, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's any good.
Ugly and cheap.
Very ugly and cheap. So, in this, you are a pilot of a supply ship, and you've got to deliver various things to the mining depots that are scattered around the Caverns of Eriban, hence the title. So, you've got to pick up supplies, refuel ships, and find the landing strips, and do all of those things, and deliver the goods. And you'll start to get, if I describe this more, you just start to get the feeling that this is kind of a very similar game to Fort Apocalypse that we talked about in episode 0, I think, or episode 1.
No, I don't think we ever mentioned Fort Apocalypse.
Oh, well, so it's like Port Apocalypse then, which is kind of this kind of thing. So the game where you're exploring caves to pick up the thing. An Airwolf, yeah, similar to Airwolf. Exploring the caves and avoiding the obstacles and the walls and doing all of that thing. And you've kind of got momentum in this as well. So when you move your craft around, it can get a bit messy. I didn't quite know what to make of this game, really. Are
you being polite here?
So I didn't quite know what to make of it, because part of me wanted to think, well, $1.99, okay. I'm not. What should I be expecting for $1.99? Should I be expecting
Kickstart?
Yeah, and you know what? What I was presented with was really squeaky, horrible audio with this game, like really squeaky. I found it quite hard to control and difficult to get into. And Foot Apocalypse did it all better anyway. There was a lot of badly drawn brown things in this game. So there was just a lot of brown, and it's a kind of a cavern-y search, which is never something you want to hear, either cavern or cavity. No one wants to be doing any of that.
Especially not in the search for brown.
And this was kind of an aeroplane, wasn't it? So why an aeroplane? Why that? Why make it that thing? Why not make it anything but an aeroplane that is like a jet plane? So I suppose if I was going to put this head-to-head with another budget game, it's kind of going for the kind of Thrust crown. Well, do you know what? It's just, no, you lose, because Thrust is this, if you're going to go for an explore the cave and get the things and escort them out and do the thing and do all of that thing with an aeroplane, and you're going to make it, if it's a bit like Thrust, but it's more like the kind of Airwolves and the Fort Apocalypse but done badly, it's just rubbish. And so I found it a really unplayable version of those. There's better games of this type already out. So this is a Firebird. Oh, surprise, it's a Firebird game. So Fire Turd, as I'm now calling them. So this is a Fire Turd game. And and I felt that it was just showing that they'll publish anything. So I had a feeling people just show up to the office of Firebird and go, I've made this, and they just showed them a picture of a cassette. And they're like, yeah, give us it, we'll put that out. So it's I described this in my final sentence of my review as this was another 8-bit dump on the chest of the C64. So, awful. Waste of time. 25% you got in Zap. I think that was ridiculously generous, but that's me. What about you?
No, yeah. Well, I'll just read my notes. What the hell is this? Sub-1981 style arcade visuals And music credited to 2 people who both need a good talking to. Terrible cavern exploring nonsense with awful everything. Controls are woolly and imprecise. The enemies are rubbish. Crap. That was it. That was my review.
That's it. It doesn't need much more than that, does it, really?
No, it doesn't. This was awful. The fact that you start on this because I've almost wiped this from my brain. But this is one where you start on the surface, isn't it? And there's the homing missiles immediately.
Yes, that's the one.
And you have to, and then you can go down and
that's
then
the one.
There's drops and there's stuff and it's rubbish. It's just garbage.
Dog
to
egg.
foist this on anyone for £2. And I thought not so much thrust. This was more of a Phantom of the Asteroid or Phantom of the Asteroids or Phantom of the Asteroid, whatever it is. Similar to that.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit more open. But, if you're going to play something like this and you want something big, go play Phantom of the Asteroids. At least that's passable. Yeah. This is garbage.
Utter crap.
Garbage. Yeah, crap. Let's move on. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Remember what we said last time. This is 75% shit. So why would you want to do that?
That's true. This is a Caverns of Eriban offence.
It is.
That's what I think.
You've just dived into a swimming pool and you've hit a massive, a kid's just pissed. And
Duty!
You do, yeah, totally, yeah. I was trying to avoid that, the whole idea of diving into a turd. But I think, some young kids just done a nice warm, let the bowels go in there, nice and warm pee, and you've just dived face first into that, and open mouth probably a bit, so salty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Salty, urine-y flavoured swimming pool water. You've just gulped that down, and that's exactly what that game is. And that's what I think of you, Harvey.
Yeah, Caverns of Eriwank.
Anyway, move on. For God's sake, move on.
Let's do it. That's enough of that game. And this is our last game before we get to a couple of cheapest creepers that we have in this section. Our next one is a sizzler. A sizzler, dear listeners. It is Night Games.
It sizzles away, this one.
It does sizzle. So this is Night Games. So Night Games is from English Software. They're the people who brought us Electroglide the other week. But now what they've turned their mind to is instead of futuristic motorbikes, we've gone to medieval thwackathons.
Yes.
I think it's the only thing I can think to say.
That's a good description.
Yeah, so because if the simple act of kicking each other doesn't appeal, which for your combat delights, how about wailing on each other with axes, swords, pikes, quarterstaffs, and ball and chains?
Yes, I'll do it.
If that sounds more your cup of tea, then Night Games is the game for you, because that's what it is. Night Games is a multi-event whack 'em up, beat 'em up type game with a couple of skill-based games thrown in for good measure in the form of archery and crossbow. Yes. So we'll deal with them last sort of thing, because you can probably deal with the most of the other 6 versions of the game. So as I said, we've got axe fighting, we've got sword fighting twice, we've got 2 types of sword fighting, but they're both the same. But we can hit each other with pikes, we can hit each other with quarterstaffs, and we can hit each other with ball and chains. Now all of these, there are 6 of them, swords come twice. We have, all of them follow the same pattern.
We do.
You are spawned out of a scroll, which is very weird. A medieval scroll rolls up the screen. I liked it, but it doesn't really fit the... it's like some kind of weird sci-fi. It's like, for this, I was thinking that maybe people are jacking into some weird game from the future, kind of like we were, actually, and unrolling themselves, and some strange, medieval, real-time thing, I don't know, whatever. So you unroll from a scroll. The opponent does the same, whether that's a computer player who has 3 different difficulty levels, or whether it's a human, and then you basically hit the crap out of each other, whether you hit each other with axes, whether you hit each other with swords, pikes, it's all the same. It's just you have 8 different moves. There's nothing with the only thing the hitting the fire button does allows you to walk left or right. All the other moves are accessed just by moving in one of the 8 directions. Supposedly in the sword fights, the diagonals do defensive moves. I'm not sure about that, but I think they do, but I'm not sure about the usefulness of them, shall we say. So this game is presented side-on, Exploding Fist, International Karate style for most of it. And the whole way that these fights play out is each person has 10 shields, and each shield is represented by 10 roses. Every time you land a hit on your opponent, one of the roses is knocked out, knock down all 10, and they lose a shield. So you've got to hit them, quick bit of maths, 100 times. Every 20 times you hit them, they will fall to their knees or their bum or whatever, or collapse over, and you will unravel from your scroll again and restart. When you get hit, it's kind of a bit of a action stopper. I wasn't quite sure why it did that, actually. I just kind of like to have carried on. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, that's it really. I didn't find that there was much strategy other than just hitting as fast as I could. You can change stuff so you can play for longer. There is time. The visuals for all these are very nice. The animation's very good. There's a lot of animation to this because obviously there's 6 different events are in 6 different locations. You've got a nice I say nice. The backgrounds are a bit weird. They're a bit kind of charactery bitty. They're strange. So there's a castle. There's countryside. There's the quarterstaff is fighting on a log over a river, and so on and so forth. It's very medieval, very quaint old English, hitting each other with big things. And that's it, really. I'm not sure whether it works better in 2-player, because obviously I haven't played it in 2-player, but in a single-player mode, it really is just a case of just hit as fast as you can until you can whittle them down. The time limit is quite nicely shown, because it's a candle melting down on the left of the screen.
I thought that was really cool.
And that's a nice touch. The presentation and visuals and everything around this game are really nice. The two other events that you can do, you've got archery. So pull down on your joystick, your player knocks the arrow. They sort of turn to the left and face where they've got to shoot. And in the distance between 2 trees, there's a rope and sort of wooden horses move along them. You have to shoot the horses essentially for more point. This takes quite a bit of skill actually, because your target is wobbling around, and you've got to lead the horses. So you've got to be well in front of them, because obviously you've got a lot of time for your arrow to get there. And that's simply a score-based attack game. You have a certain amount of time or arrows. How much score you get is, and that's quite good because that's more skill-based. Same with the crossbow. With the crossbow, similar sort of thing. You have 3 targets that will be spinning around. You have a big circle one, a cross, and a smaller circle one that's further away, harder to hit, wobbly reticule. Hitting them gives you points, and so on and so forth. Again, another skill-based one. All in all, this is a really, really good package of games. It's fun, it's bright, the music is really good. Dave Whittaker pieces throughout, some better than others, but generally all of them pretty good. None of them, get on your nerves or anything, so they're all pretty decent. As I said, the graphics are nice, they're big, they're bold, they're well animated. It's more akin to Hess, I would say, in the way that it functions, because you just pick an event and go at it and you get a score, and then there's no way, at least I didn't notice, there's no way to play through all of them in a tournament, is there? I didn't know there is. I don't think there was. Didn't miss that one. So you just play them. It's kind of like Hess games. You just play them. Once you play, you go back, you choose your next one, and so on and so forth. It's good. It's just the combat is just a bit brainless. It's just a bit mindless.
Yeah.
There's not much strategy to it. There might be a bit more if you played in 2-player, but I think in 2-player it would be who could move the joystick fastest.
Yeah, it's just a slog-a-thon.
It is a slog-a-thon, yeah, for however long you do. And maybe they go on for a bit too long. I don't know. It's fun. I think 90% is about bang on for this. For the amount of stuff in this, the amount of fun you got to get out of it, because it is fun all the way through. And especially you get multiple players playing this, you're going to have quite a good time with this, I think. That's my opinion. What was yours?
I agree. I always liked night games. I always liked the music. I remember it very well, the Dave Whittaker soundtrack to this. It was always a bit of a brainless sort of bashathon. And that was always its downfall. And, on replay, it remained the same kind of logic. So there's no real skill involved apart from the archery, there's no real skill involved in what you're doing. The moves don't really counter each other, or, not in any way that kind of makes any sense in the kind of, panic-stricken flurry of joystick and bashing that you do when you play it. Mm-hmm. So you just end up, clubbing a guy to death repeatedly as much as humanly possible, really. Even in 2-player, I imagine the longevity of its attraction might wane, but I had fun playing it this time, as I have always had fun playing it, and it at least is something a bit different. Now, I'll come to that in a minute, but one thing I will say, here's just an interesting thing for you. Way back when I was in secondary school, I actually re-engineered, for want of a better term, copied is what some people might otherwise say, one of the pieces of music from Night Games, and actually played it to the music teacher at Whitgift School, which is where we went, in Grimsby, and I converted it to a duet with Joe Hammond, and we both played a duet of one of the tunes from Night Games as a piece of one of our final sort of pieces of GCSE music. Apologies to Dave Whittaker, because we kind of blatantly ripped you off, but it went down very well, so just I thought you might want to know that, because it was genuinely well appreciated. Anyway, that's one aside. The other thing I was going to say is that I think this is kind of an underrepresented genre. I always felt there was kind of a good space to have a game involving Knights of the Realm doing stuff like bashing each other with swords, and I felt that the one thing this was missing, or not maybe one thing, but one of the things it was missing was the ability to try different weapons against different weapon types. So, ball and chain versus sword, just those kind of things. Wrap this up in a bit of Excalibur cloth, and you've got kind of a John Borman's Excalibur game. It wouldn't have. Yeah. It's not out of the realms of possibility to have involve a game where you've got knights of the realm fighting each other using knights and shining armor type stuff. And it just seems to be, to me, a bit of an underrepresented genre. There's a game that comes out later on the Amiga, which is kind of a bloodbath version of this, where it gets really gory and violent. Moonstone, yeah, where it's got that kind of similar kind of vibe, not a sort of event-based game, but I think this is kind of unique. It's a different take on the multi-event game. This isn't something you're going to, you're not comparing this to an Epic's game, so this isn't Summer Night Games 2 or anything like that. This is different. The music's good. The graphics, I think, are really good, albeit that they're just a bit lacking in, I don't know, I wouldn't say animation, because there's not a lot of animation in it, but they're okay for what they are, and they're arcade style.
And they're certainly better than another game we'll look at next week, which is a similar multi-event kick 'em up.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not complaining. I think there's enough in there to warrant this being, it is a great game, but it got 90%. Again, I don't get it. I don't get the scoring. You know what? I'm going to just stop questioning the scoring now. I think this out of all the games in this episode, this probably deserved the gold medal because of its. Yeah, I think because it's unique. It's a different take. The graphics are good. The sound is good. It plays and it's complete. It feels like a good fun game. It's a bit repetitive maybe, but since when has that been a problem? Because you could argue that Ghosts and Green Beret and a number of others that probably should have also deserved a gold medal. Are those things. I don't get why this scored less than something like Way of the Exploding Fist. It's, maybe if they'd have just made it a bit bigger, I don't know. There's maybe a number of things you could say we could have improved this by doing this, that, and the other. I think it's a good single multiplayer, fun game. Who doesn't enjoy bashing the crap out of their mate, with a mace or with a pike or whatever? Maybe it gets a bit samey, but I don't know. There's a lot to go at here, really. It's you're talking about 8 sort of games really in one. I think it's not bad value for a 10 quid. So, and I remember really enjoying playing this back in the day, and then when I replayed it for this, I was straight back in the zone with it. Although I have to say, my one caveat really is that it did get repetitive, and it was quite clear that the various levels, aside from the archery, were kind of almost the same thing with different sort of weapons. But you know what? It's a fun old game. I'm just surprised that there isn't like a PS5 version of something like this where you've got knights in shining armor fighting people. Maybe there is, I don't know.
There is, For Honor.
All right, well, there you go. I don't play enough PlayStation
Ubisoft
games to know.
For Honor is that kind of game you're kind of describing, where loads of different types of enemy types sort of thing fight around. You've also got things like Chivalry and stuff like that.
I've never played any of those games, but I suppose the only thing I can liken this to is a bit like when you play Assassin's Creed or one of the Assassin's Creed games where you're fighting some of the Templars in some of the earlier versions of that. And that's what I mean. The logic of the game and that idea really works when it's in that context. It's brilliant. And so this game logic of night games actually is a kind of a playable thing. And the idea of chivalry in games involving knights in shining armor, well, Defender of the Crown comes, later down the line, and other games of that type. But I like the idea of what they tried here. I think it's a bit, at least it was a bit different.
This does get a sequel, doesn't it? There is a sequel coming.
There is Night Games too, yes, there is.
I don't think I really played it very much, so
it's not as good, I don't believe. But you know what? It's a game that I have very rusty memories about, so I'm very interested to see what it's like.
Yeah, but there you go. Night Games. It's fun, mindless, very mindless, but fun. Taking chunks out of each other with various medieval weaponry, and then playing night games. Hey! Anyway. Okay, so that was Night Games. Now we're going to move into... we're going to spread them through the episodes this time. So we've got a couple of Cheapers Creepers just to round out this section.
Cheapers Creepers, where'd you get those peepers? Cheapers Creepers, where'd you get those eyes?
These were in Zapp's budget range. The first one of these is Ninja Master. Ninja Master. Graham, tell us about Ninja Master.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to go into too much depth with this because it doesn't deserve
Ninja Games. I remember them.
It's a multi-event game, so it's like Night Games really, but Ninja Games. Good old Ninja Games. Only you're kind of a solo ninja kind of in this one, and you've got to do the various types of ninja-style events. So kick the arrows, break the beam, block the shurikens, and that kind of thing. And most of it seems to be, at least from my experience of the games, seems to be played from you control a character who's in the center of the screen, a ninja, no less, and you control them directionally with the joystick, and those directions, things are fired at you in the directions that you press, mean that you're blocking the things that are firing at you ninja style, so arrow cutting, I believe that's the actual term of it, but Could be wrong. And so those are the things that you do. So that's kind of the game. Multi-ninja events, doing ninja-y stuff to get, better score for doing and blocking the more shurikens and the more arrows and the more beams and things like that. I didn't get that far into it much further because I thought it was dreadful. The graphics were really awful. The lag on the controls was inexplicable because my understanding of ninjas is that they're agile, super fast, almost like shadow speed, blink speed, assassin types that can leap up to a rooftop, fly around, run around almost silently, if not totally silently, and all that kind of ninja-y stuff that we all remember from the various conversations we've had with our friends about ninjas, because probably not based on any kind of reality, but it doesn't matter. So this is kind of this. If you think of what the ninjas that this game is based on are the kind of Way of the Tiger ninjas.
It had very much so.
Way of the Tiger and the whole idea of ninjas and assassins had become quite a popular thing in the early to mid 80s, both in terms of literature for the kind of age group. So the whole of the Way of the Tiger books, Assassin and Usurper, and I think there's about 7 or 8 of them. I don't know all of them off the top of my head. So, and also in popular culture, ninjas had become a thing. So there was films like American Ninja,
Turtles.
And ninjas are appearing in popular culture. Shogun, for example, the miniseries had a whole sequence of ninjas in it. Let alone other stuff. Ninja Turtles, yeah, of course, yeah, I completely forgot about them. But the whole idea of ninjas had become a thing. So this game kind of is playing on that. The controls are really laggy and lack the responsiveness to be able to really make this game effective as a ninja. It's got really weird speech, like really weirdly scratchy speech. In fact, I've got quoted that said, "I'm not sure what Ru, Rav, or Horrorhide has actually what it means." Well, no, I suspect the Trials of the Ninja, which I don't doubt is a film it's a film that's probably been made. And I've watched a few episodes of, The Master with Lee Van Cleef and a few other, I can't tell you how ninjas were pretty popular at this particular time. Even conversations I was having at school level with my other friends were about ninjas. They were practicing their ninja moves out of those stupid assassin books on us all. A couple of people I can think of in particular, I won't name, even went to the extent of buying ninja suits and scaring the bejesus out of people. Anyway, long and the short of it is this game any good? No, it's not. It's crap. I've put that it's the speech, which was crap anyway, added nothing to this ninja slowness simulation of arse cake. It was awful. And so 28% was generous, I think. And I think it scored 28% because it was $1.99. I thought it was just pantaloons. Rubbish. But you know what? We're going to come across a few ninja games that are just as bad. So this is just a beginning, I think, a tip of a terrifyingly bland and boring and crappy graphic ninja iceberg. But what did you think?
This is rubbish. 4-event ninja hypersports type thing with awful graphics and sound all around. Terrible speech, although it was kind of funny. Even for $1.99 is bad. Do you know what this reminded me of? Do you know when you used to... And no disrespect, so some people made good games, but when we used to go and see some of the early years game development stuff, so the level 3 stuff, and they'd be like, oh, look at this, they've made a game. And this reminded me of some of those, like, first, not bad, because this is like students' first attempt at making something. So they'd have in Unity, and you press a key, and you'd have like a 2-frame animated sprite that would do something, and you'd be like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, it works, but it's that. But then somebody's decided to make that and release it for £2 onto an unsuspecting public. That's what this is.
Releases, right?
It's a black release. That's what this is. Like a ninja slips out without any noise or fanfare, but you soon know. but you soon know about it through its awful stench.
So it's like a ghost turd, they slip out when you're least expecting it.
Well, when you get to our age, that can happen.
It can and does.
Absolutely. Driving, walking to the shop.
The cinema, the screams of the people sat next to you.
What are you picking up there? No. Oh, it's just from a dog. You don't have a dog.
Getting the extra large popcorn in case you need the toilet midway through. Maybe that's just me, but
absolutely, yeah, extra salty. Awful, yeah, just crap. Just a really bad thing. And it does, someone must have thought, what would be really good? Ninjas at ninja events. Like, let's do ninjas in some kind of event stuff and the thing, but then wrapped it all in 2-frame crap animation.
Yes. And you know what worries me a bit is that this is like people are out there thinking that they've completed this game, if that is even possible. And they are ninja masters, and that worries me that post 1986, the world of the ninja went downhill rapidly when people thought that was mastery of ninjutsu.
Well, the graphics corrupted on the 4th level on this. I got to the 4th level and they corrupted, but I still managed to get through it. But I don't know what happened if it then properly crashed. But yeah, I am a ninja master. I can now class myself as a ninja master. I will be jumping from a tree on a bed very soon. I will be going all kung fu. John Carradine or David Carradine? Not John, he's
David.
too old. Which one of the
John
Carradines
Carradine,
was
he's
in
dead.
kung fu? Yeah, him. I'll be going all David. Well, he wasn't back then.
Or is he? Is he the ultimate ninja master? You think he's dead?
And we all think he's dead, but he can't be seen, but he's always
Apart from the ones who've mastered it by this game, when they just stand in the middle and wait for things to be thrown at them. In 2 frames.
in 2 frames. Why do your arms go from straight to bent with nothing in between?
What worries me and baffled me is that I think I had faster reactions in this game was making me believe I had. So the stars are coming towards me, and there are, by the way, shuriken and arrows that fly at you in this game, which you have no chance of being able to beat, because even if you press the joystick to the corner, it's then like at least a second before it goes, okay, you're doing that now, are you? So you're going to do left corner block. Oh, it's too late. Arrow in your chest.
Yeah, do you know what else this reminded me of as well? Somebody had played International Karate or Way of the Exploding Fist, and they'd played it, and what they'd taken away from it was, do you know what would make a great game? Is those bits in between the fighting. People love those bits, so let's make a whole game based around them, but crapper.
Those middle bits.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's
more
it.
of that.
Yeah, that's what they've done. Yeah,
they did.
That's what the thought process around this was, and you can tell.
And really bad versions, yeah. And it's all good if you're a practicing ninja and you expect things to be thrown at you from 3 exact levels, like top, middle, and bottom, because you're totally engineered to like block
or
at that
turn
level.
around.
But what if they just throw on like between top and middle? You're like, no, there is no block for this. My ninja skills do not allow me to block at that level.
The other thing that annoyed me about this as well, because the first one where you can do 2 arms, 2 legs, and the diagonals, I get that. Yeah. But the second one where you've got to do basically it's top, middle, bottom, why do they still insist on the diagonals, which are tricky to get? Why not just up, right, down, which is easier?
You're asking for logic.
You're only looking for one input then.
The path of the ninja is never easy.
No, we know not one input. We do multiple things.
Exactly.
None of them good.
You have not learned from the ninja masters.
Not these ones anyway.
The shortest distance between 2 points is the most difficult route possible.
Okay. Thank you, Sensei. Can I have another?
That's what I've learned, and that's what I think of you
let me just
ninjas.
crack open another cookie.
Don't listen to Graham, he's not a ninja. Who put that cookie there?
Oh, Ninja Master's crap.
Yes.
Right,
rubbish.
let's move on. That's one Jeepers Creepers. You think that's bad?
Jeepers Creepers, where'd you get those eyes?
Next one up got 4%. 4%. 4. I've never seen
4%.
anything so low in my life. 4%. This is Jet Strike Mission. I mean, this was £5. £5. That's only £1.50 less than International Karate.
Less than £1.
This is more than I got per week for doing my paper round. If I'd have saved up and spent my paper round on this, there'd have been rage. So, my main question around this is, why would anyone send this in for review? Why? At what point do you think this is worth reviewing?
Release it?
Well, for cheap lols. Turgid, boring, character graphic-based fight thing that is awful. I've put... that's it. That's all I want to say about this game. If this was Jet from Gladiators, we'd have been onto something. If it was like, Jet Strike Mission... It would have been good though, wouldn't it? So, because he could have done it like a ninja.
Yes.
She could have been like Saboteur, based around Jet, going in and
she
doing
probably
stuff.
wouldn't be wearing the same clothes as that, but that's fine.
You never know.
Attacks everyone with them giant cotton buds that they had.
Absolutely. You have massive ears.
Oh, sorry, pugil sticks, I believe they called them.
Yeah, they're only good.
Okay, bring out the
They're only good
pugil
on
sticks.
Dumbo. This is one of the worst things I've ever seen. And that's when I've picked out, I've noted here, this is worse than when I pick out the wrong game from our bank of ROMs with the same name as something else. And I've given you some crap to look at. And this is worse.
Yeah, I thought it was for the first time.
Did you make the mistake of asking for it to tell you the controls?
Yes.
What did you do for the next 20 minutes?
I was waiting for ages and ages and ages. Like, are you going to tell me what we're doing?
And boringness. Also, I put 10 print crash, 20 go to 10 is not how you do a crash routine for a plane. Because that's what it did. That's literally what it does. It just fills the screen with the word crash.
Yep.
It's awful. This is dreadful. I don't know what it's supposed to be this character graphics. It's a flight. It's awful. It's crap. do you want to end there? Because there's not a lot else.
All I can add is yes. Does it win the award for the most Commodore 64 character graphics used for the layout of some kind of cockpit? Yeah.
Massively.
That's creative use of character graphics, and that's the only thing that there is, really. This is obviously written basic and obviously not very well, so it's not going to be optimized, which means it's awful. I think it's a typing game from somewhere that someone's just adapted. It did not look like a legitimate game, so I think it's a scam, really. The equivalent of a kind of a phishing scam. There's no way it could be considered other than a rip-off, really, and I wouldn't ever waste my time loading it, downloading it, do any of those things. I think if anything, it's a nice reflection of how far things have got from these kind of god-awful, crappy releases that we spoke about in the early episodes of this podcast to where we've come now, where we've got Green Beret, Ghosts and Goblins, and other games like that. An interesting fact, this is actually published by the same people that published Return of the Space Warriors, the old Eggy Joust. So you'd think they'd know better. So they've obviously got a benchmark of something. So they either didn't play this, didn't see it, or the person that released it to them lied. Anyway, it's the one and only game made by the person that made it. So I thought it was, and other than that, and those interesting factoids that show nothing about the game, which is crap, and it's worth avoiding at all costs for the rest of time and space.
It has made me want a Jet from Gladiators game, though.
Yeah, Jet Strike Mission with actual Jet in it would be much better than this. In fact, even if it was just a graphical image of Jet shouting the word Strike Mission when you press the spacebar, that would have been more playable than this bloody awful monstrosity. So enough said, the better. Awful.
Yeah. So there you go. That's our first 6 games. We've got tons of games. There's tons and tons of games these couple of episodes, by the way. Just so many.
Load of games.
So if you think this is running long, it's not.
We've had to play tons of the damn
more,
things.
loads more.
Loads of them.
So there you go. That's the first section over with. We'll be back shortly where we will be looking at music in September 1986. So stay with us. Thanks to our sponsor, DavidHearnWriter.com, where you'll find stories influenced by classic games from the Commodore 64 and Amiga. His next book, Escape from the Commodore 64, is coming soon. Sarah thought her brother Reese was telling tales when he said he got stuck inside his old bread bin, only to find herself stuck inside it too. Set in the 80s, this book will take you back to the days of Rubik's Cubes, Cabbage Patch Kids, and the best 8-bit computer the world had ever seen. Visit DavidHearnWriter.com, that's David, Hearne, writer.com, to find out a whole lot more. All right, welcome back. Let's get on with music in September 1986. Well, number one single. We had one all month. It was Don't Leave Me This Way by the Communards. I said that was going to be big, I think.
Yeah, I think last episode, 2 episodes ago, you said, I'm sure this got to number one for a good while, and you were right, it did. And in answer to your question, which at the time was, and which came first, the Communards or Bronski Beat, Communards came after Bronski Beat. So
there we go.
So the Bronski Beat Egg was the first one, and the
the Bronski Beat
came
Egg
later. Yeah, and then later Communards, and then solo artist for Jimmy Somerville.
Jimmy Somerville, all right.
Yes, but a very popular song. I actually quite like the Communards and Bronski Beat. They were kind of cool at the time. You know, I quite like that kind of sound. So,
well, that guy who's the Reverend guy who's on loads of panel shows was the keyboardist, wasn't he?
He is, yeah. He's now a fully fledged Reverend. Yeah, he is. Yeah, but he is. Yeah.
He's on loads of panel shows on Dave.
He is.
As one of the regulars on panel shows on Dave, which is the same 12 people cycling round endlessly.
The ones that would brave lockdown, yeah. There's been the same faces keep propping up. I know Jimmy Carr is on everything. It's like, my God, just give it a rest, Jimmy. Give someone else a chance. God, get off.
Yeah. Just as an aside on that, we may be hearing this later in the year, sort of thing, but sad news about Sean Locke, sadly gone. I really like Sean Locke.
Comedian,
his comedic style was right up my alley. Brutal and he's just so funny, but yeah, sad loss.
He was always good in QI. One of my favourites.
He was good in everything. It's just brilliant. If you haven't seen it, go look at the section where he talks about winning Rectum of the Year on an 8 out of 10 Cats Do Countdown. He just reduces Claudia Winkleman to she can't do anything. She's just when he's going on about it. His last line about being beaten by Diego Maradona. He says when Diego Maradona bent over, he set the sprinklers off.
All
it
good.
Just kills me.
All good.
It's brilliant. Yeah, we like Sean. Anyway, number one albums. 2 weeks we had now. That's what I call Music 7.
Oh.
We've spoken about that already.
Just floating around like spider webs in the morning, just get in the way.
Well, when you've got all those tracks on it, I'm not surprised. But then replacing that, the following week, after 2 weeks, was Silk and Steel, 5-star for a week.
So our answer to the Jacksons.
Indeed, and the second album by the British pop group 5-star, you've noted here, and this was the group's biggest seller.
It was, by far their biggest.
It would have been even bigger if they'd have called it Sapphire and Steel, I feel.
Now, don't even get me started on, because Sapphire and Steel is a really ingenious and inventive program from the
which is
late
why
70s,
you would have courted both the young pop audience and the geeky older audience.
I mean, as a TV show, it made no sense, and everyone remembers the one episode with the guy with no face that scared the crap out of every kid between between 1978 and 1981. I think is the time it was on. It might have been a bit before that, but it was scary stuff. That episode was terrifying.
It was a very strange show, Sapphire and Steel, sitting in that no man's land of British sci-fi madness.
It was
kind of along the same line.
Lumley in it? I'm imagining.
And David, what's his face?
The aptly named.
Is it David
the confused David, what's his face? Yeah.
Not David McCallum. I want to say David McCallum.
No, I know what you mean. It's that. I know we should really look at.
We should look it up.
Well, we should.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Sapphire and Steel have been assigned, and I want to say it was Joanna Lumley and
David McCallum and Joanna Lumley.
Yes,
we were
I
right.
thought so yes. Because
there
are many elements, and it lists the elements with that kind of opening sequence, doesn't it? Famously, and then it descends into a really off the wall. But they, even this, we're in the time of The Prisoner, so
that's what I'm saying. This is in that ilk, isn't it? Of like the weird British sci-fi where anything you could think of went.
Yeah, I'd go and check it out though, because I think it's on BritBox, so it's probably worth checking out because they are quite interesting.
Yeah.
But just suspend the idea that special effects are very important. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Put your special eye on. Graceland was final number one for this month.
Yes.
By Paul Simon. We mentioned that. I think we said it came in, but now it's got to number one.
Yeah.
Graceland was massive. It was huge, and as you've noted here, somewhere along the line, it sells millions around the world. It's by far his biggest album. And yes, I did know he was married to Carrie Fisher.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he was married to Carrie Fisher.
I did. And I do, yes, she may have once said, aren't you a little short for a songwriter? She very well may have said that.
She must have said it.
I'm trying to think of other lines. I'm trying to think of other lines she could have said to him as well.
I wonder if Paul Simon had a cousin that was like a more like manly, taller, sort of, cheeky kind of version, smuggler, on the run from like a fat, lizard guy, I want to call him
Han Simon.
Yeah,
Han Simon.
Han Simon. Yeah, and he was, and she was always a bit more interested in Han Simon than she was. Who knows? There's a weird mirroring of things. But interesting all the same.
There you go. That's your number ones. So new singles of note. 7th September we had Rain or Shine by 5-star in at number 30.
There they are again.
And they're still touring according to you.
Yeah, you can go and see them in Southend-on-Sea. If you want to see 5-star, that's the next gig. You can go and see that. You could book a ticket. I suspect, and I could be completely wrong, but there'll be plenty of tickets available. So get in there. If you're digging the old 5-star, and it's the actual original lineup of 5-star as well.
All five. I thought in typical me fashion, I thought one of them was dead.
Well, that would be 4-star, which is a wholly different experience. No, I think it's the original lineup. I'm not going to go into too much depth and check.
Who cares?
Let's just assume that it is because it's 5-star.
Walk Like an Egyptian by the Bangles was in at number 72.
Oh God, that song was everywhere. Walk Like an Egyptian.
That stupid video of people walking like Egyptians.
Well, assuming that Egyptians never walk like that, but
no, I'd probably think they don't. We're thinking Egyptian stereotypes from ancient, hieroglyphics.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
If you take the hieroglyphic image of an Egyptian person, and take the fact that it's a language and they represent things, but never mind that, and you assume that because they're 2D, that's the way they walk. I imagine that they're watching all of the Bugs Bunny and Tom and Jerry, going, these animals in this. The animals look completely different to what I'm expecting. Do they walk like that? No, they don't walk like an Egyptian.
No.
But the song was everywhere, wasn't it? And I know it gets a lot higher than that, and I think it remains in the top 10 forever after that. I'm pretty sure it does.
I think it just get quite high. I'm never sure. I don't think it gets to number one though.
No,
I think
it's
Eternal
the
Flame was
song.
their first number one.
For some reason, I have a feeling that
I could be
Warhawk
wrong.
gets held off by something. In the UK, it could be held off by, Clicky Clack Clue by the Bing Bangs or something stupid. So,
Grandma, I love you.
yeah, it'd be something to do with grandmas, granddads. Yeah, grandma met granddad, and things happen we don't want to talk about. His teeth fell out, and so did hers. Anyway,
And a nylon slipped.
the nylon slipped and then started a fire.
What?
They couldn't get out because they were so old, and that's the song we're singing. Anyway, never mind that. So
No.
more
I was thinking when they were younger.
no, that's
Anyway.
horrific.
True, right. On from an Egyptians. True Colours in at number 87 from Cyndi Lauper.
Is it Cyndi Lauper or Cyndi Lauper?
I don't know. I've always said Lauper.
Oh, I think you're right. I think it's Cyndi Lauper.
Yeah, prove me wrong.
No, I will. I think it is. Do you like Cyndi Lauper?
I like some of the stuff. I like True Colours is good, and obviously the classic, which I completely forgotten now.
Girls Just Wanna Have Fun.
No, the other one.
There's another one.
The other one where she gets on. Where she gets on the
Time
train.
after time.
Time after time. There you go. Yeah, I like that. But I'm not a huge Cyndi Lauper fan.
Well, just as an interesting little factoid, this is co-written by one of the most successful songwriters in the last 25 years. A guy called Billy Steinberg. Now, you might not have heard of Billy Steinberg or his co-writer Tom Kelly, but he also wrote Like a Virgin, True Colours, So Emotional by Whitney Houston, Eternal Flame by the Bangles, and Alone by Heart. So, got a pedigree, hasn't it? True Colours. So you can... I just couldn't dig Cyndi Lauper's Lauper. Vocals are all wrong. I just scratchy kind of...
I think Time After Time's quite sweet.
I much prefer the version from that dancing film that came out about the dancers. I can't remember the name of the film, but it'll come back to me.
Fame?
No,
Flashdance?
it's the one with the ballroom dancing. Strictly Ballroom.
Strictly Ballroom.
Yeah, there's a version of Time After Time in Strictly Ballroom, which isn't sung by Cyndi Lauper, thancfully, because I don't like her version. It's a much better version, actually a duet, which is probably what it should have been all along, really, thinking about it.
I mean, it is a duet. I mean, there is you don't really notice the male backing vocal in it, or the male vocal in the chorus, but it's necessary when you do listen to that version.
Yeah, but that's because it's Cyndi Lauper doing both, and so she
at the same time,
she
she's
up for
incredibly
those ones. Yeah,
incredibly talented. She's got 2 tonsils, 4 sets of tonsils.
I hope she has 2 tonsils or none.
No, 4 sets.
Massive 4 sets. She apparently records the Cyndi Lauper female version and then necks a load of roids and then angrily sings through the remaining vocals of the song, and then they merge the two in post-production. Miracle, really. Miracle it got released. It gets higher than 87 though, so we're not going to be... We ain't going to see the back of it this episode, I'll tell you that.
Nah. Then in at number 100, couldn't come in any lower, was Misfit from Curiosity Killed the Cat.
No, it gets a lot higher, that one. It does.
It does. I'm sure it does. I mean, unless this is their first... I'm pretty sure this must be their first release, because Curiosity Killed the Cat are like at the vanguard of blandcore.
You mean you don't like them and their crazy ways?
No, I couldn't stand Ben Von Pellier. I found his annoying beret wearing annoying. I mean, I have a penchant for tiny hats, as you said, but that's too tiny. A bloody beret. You're not French.
He's not French. Not French at all.
No, and you're not in the army, and you're not going stabbing people, so you have no right to wear a beret.
And I agree that Curiosity probably did kill the cat at some point, or has killed cats, but I don't think reminding people of that fact all the time is very helpful or very generous. It's kind of a mean thing to do. And just as an aside again, did you see the video? Did you watch the video for this? Because it's got Andy Warhol in it. He plays quite a part.
I did not watch it, no.
Yeah, they have he's in it, holding up placards, a bit like that moment in Love Actually, where the guy holds up the cards to that girl with the writing on and says,
oh, like the Bob Dylan.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a Andy Warhol pastiche of that. Doesn't help Misfit being anything other than a Curiosity Killed the Cat song, which for me was, like you said, I must have had a very early, very attuned radar for this garbage, because my mind just went no, and even at that young age in 1996 I was like no, so it was gone, and that was it. Erase, done.
Yeah, I had a friend who liked them, and so he liked a lot of music, which I did like, but he liked these kind of bands. But I was like, nah, that's a step too far for us, I didn't used to like it.
It was a step too far for him when you pushed him off a cliff. But
absolutely.
But we'd best not talk about that, because the court case is still ongoing for that one.
That's what Curiosity got in.
Yes, Curiosity Killed the Cat. So
Cat being my friend.
Cat being his friend, yeah. Catterick.
That's not a name.
It is now.
Yay! 14th of September is One Great Thing by Big Country, which is in at number 27. Used on a Tennant's lager advert. Of course it was. They're Scottish.
Yeah, exactly. This is the third single, and it got used in a Tennant's lager, and it reminded me of when I got very drunk on Tennant's Super Strength about probably around this time, actually, with our
Tennant's
friend
Super
Gary.
Strength was evil.
Yeah,
evil
well,
stuff.
it was cheap. And
8%.
Gary and I ventured to an off license, and because we didn't want to get rumbled because we were massively underage, we walked about 20 miles to go to an off license where they had no chance of recognizing us, even though the fact that I was, a big teenager, so, a big teenager, fat, big teenager, with absolutely no chance of being ID'd in any capacity. And also Gary, I think, by this point was probably borderline actually old enough to drink. So I don't quite know why we went to this subterfuge of walking for miles. It probably just what Gary wanted to walk for miles. Anyway, long and the short of it is we bought a few cans of this Super Strength because we thought it was about 10%, which for a lager is a lot. Plus we didn't drink at all really in our naive teen and youth. Drank loads of this stuff, and I seem to remember staggering home and falling asleep in the lounge pretending to read the paper, and I'm pretty sure Gary ended up throwing up everywhere, much to his mum's chagrin. So, sorry, Maggie, we didn't mean to do that. Well, I didn't, but Gary was the one that made us do it because it was him and his fault. But that was the early memory
of... He made me do it. He's still saying it years later.
Yes, he
We're
did
grown-ups, no one cares.
He does, I do, and she does. She remembers. Maggie never forgets. She's like the Anonymous of the 80s. She'll see it coming and she never forgets. And so, no, apologies, Maggie, but it was Gary's fault anyway. And this is nothing to do with the song by Big Country, but they did use it in the Tennant's advert.
Graham has started using this podcast as a way to clear his chest of all the crazy things he did in the past.
Yes, it's a cleanse.
Next week on whatever that Madonna song was, Graham apologises for something else.
Open your heart to me.
Open your heart. What will it be? Who knows? Tune in next week for Graham to clear his heart again. Because at number 67, Showing Out, Get Fresh at the Weekend by good old Mel and Kim.
Oh, God. Mel and Kim, Appleby.
Did you really have a proper crush on Mel?
I had a real proper crush on Mel Appleby. She was gorgeous. She's just stunning. And even now, and I look back many years later, and sadly she passed away from cancer. Tragic loss, really, because I think she was just a very beautiful woman. And even then, thinking about, and when I was looking back at some of the Top of the Pops episodes, and there was really a sad and sort of meaningful interview with Kim Appleby, obviously, who survives Mel, and just about the life and what they got into and the kind of the direction it was heading. And they were just at that massive cusp of being super huge. They were really popular. And then it all got taken away. But she was just beautiful. And it's nothing to do with the fact that she was in Playboy. She was just nothing at all. She's just a very, very attractive woman. And when I look back, I was like, she really was. It's just amazing that how you look at them and you think they're a bit of a what could have been. And I really like Showing Out and Get Fresh at the Weekend. And I like all of that kind of stuff. Amazing producers that Stock Aitken and Waterman had working for him at that time.
Yeah, you've written some troubling words at the end, though. Those cracking house-style tracks, brilliant. I find that troublesome. They're not. Stock Aitken and Waterman were crap.
No, they're not. That's not true.
I don't like Stock Aitken and Waterman. Didn't like them then.
If you judge Stock Aitken and Waterman by if your understanding of them is Pete Waterman, that's not true.
It's their output, all of it.
They're
like any of it.
Phil Hardin, Pete Hammond, and Dave Ford pioneered a sound. And that sound maybe got overused and repetitive, but in this early stages with people like Mel and Kim, it's genuinely brilliant. A really nice, punchy, poppy, unique at the time house sound for the UK. Remember, this is UK-produced stuff. House wasn't a UK thing. That came out of the Chicago warehouses and dance clubs. So this was our version of it. And I have to say, and don't get me wrong, it went downhill rapidly. But these early stuff, like Showing Out and stuff like that, forget all of the stuff. Remember that they started off by doing sort of new energy stuff, like You Spin Me Round, and trying to really make a big song and dance in the sort of the gay dance nightclub scene. And they did to some extent. This was reaching out in a different way, and I really like it. I guess it's just, horses for courses and stuff, but do I like the London Boys, or do I like, So Macho and some of the other... Sonia and some of the other stuff that came later on? No. But for every Sonia and some of the other stuff that came out and some of the derivative nonsense, there's a Mel and Kim track, or there's Never Gonna Give You Up, and as much as you might berate them and hate them. Pop songs and brilliant pop songs and production, they are. So they're not quite for everybody, obviously, but...
I give you Spin Me Right Round. I do like Spin Me Right Round.
Which is odd, because that's, but...
Good song.
They were developing a sound, and they developed it into sadly, and I suppose in some ways sad, I suppose inevitably really, it developed into a bit of a machine, a production machine. And they became, the hit factory. And when they became that, well, you know what? Maybe
we all know it all led to Hitman and Hair.
Well, the Hitman and Hair was what a strange program that was.
That at some point you have to just say no, in the words of Zammo.
Yeah. If ever there was a point when TV was desperate for content, it's when you're asking Michaela Strachan and Pete Wortman to work together to go to a Blackpool nightclub to interview drunk people. And they agreed. Like, yeah, let's do that. Is it a way for Pete Wortman to play loads and loads of Stock Aitken and Wortman tracks? Who knows? Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. It doesn't matter now.
No, because let's move on. Because 21st of September, "Who Wants to Live Forever" by Queen was in at number 28. Obviously, we're still in Highlander territory.
We are.
We're still in. We've still got our Egyptian connection. With the Bangles.
We have.
But does Brian May sing on this?
He does.
Where's he sing? I can't remember.
The opening lines of this song are sung by Brian May. "There's no time for us." The very opening.
Oh, yes.
That's Brian May singing.
I've wiped that from my mind because I just think it starts off with "Who Wants to Live?"
No.
When Freddie Mercury comes in.
It starts off with Brian May singing that kind of "Who Wants to Live Forever" on his own.
There's no time. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
God. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone should erase it. And then Freddie Mercury comes in and sings it properly. And it's like watching someone. It's like a recording of someone's singing lesson. So it's like, so you sing it how you want to sing it.
There's no time for us. There's no place for us.
And then Freddie Mercury comes in and goes, "Okay, I'll do it properly."
There's no chance for us.
And he just instantly, it's like, wow, that's how a singer really does sing it. So and then from that minute forth, and every time I've heard it, I thought it should not be allowed because it's so awful. And again, Brian May, very talented on the old telescope and the old guitar a little bit. We know that he has had lessons and that. Amazing, really, but singing, not so much. And it's awful. It's even thinking about it now makes me think, God, no.
I mean, I'm surprised he can actually sing though with a guitar the size of a wardrobe. Remember?
Well, that's why he sings falsetto.
That's going to strain the old vocals and other parts of the body.
Later down the line, not only does he sing a full song in tribute to Freddie Mercury, which is, "Too Much Love Will Kill You," when he sings that. And all right, I get the meaning and I get everything else. Just get someone else to sing it, Brian, please. I know it comes from the heart. Let it come from someone else's vocal cords. That's all I'm saying.
Your wife, maybe?
Yeah, anyone that can sing better than that. And then the intro for that, which is awful, but at least Freddie Mercury steps in and goes, "Right, enough of you, Brian. Let me just sing this properly now." Why they left it in, I don't know. Later, in 1991, of course, comes "Everything We Do Is Driven By You," which was for the Ford advert. I don't remember at the time.
Yes, I do.
That has got an intro at the beginning that actually makes you want to cry so bad. And the live version, which, by the way, my last exposure to was the Expo, where you've got Brian May and Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and Joe Walsh and loads of other famous guitarists, the Guitar Expo of whatever year it was. That's my last expo to that particular version of his song where he sings that because it's got that "Everything I do for you." Oh.
Whoa, everything I do for you.
I can only apologise, listeners.
It's honestly, and I was paraphrasing it badly, and that's actually sounded better. It's awful. So, God, no more. No. Who wants to live forever? No one, if that's the kind of vocal tonality that's existing in the future. No, people are leaping off cliffs rather than that, and I've had enough. So, no.
Lemmings like.
Yeah.
It's like the Pied Piper of crapness. In at number 30 was State of the Nation by New Order. And yes, it does have a feature rare in New Order single, in that it does actually say the song title somewhere within it.
Yes, because they don't normally,
lots
do
of
they?
theirs don't. They don't normally, no. True Faith, Blue Monday, none of those do.
Nope.
In at number 45, World Shut Your Mouth by Julian Cope. Pretty much the only Julian Cope song I know.
I don't know much about him, really. I know that song because of the chorus, which is catchy.
It is a
And
catchy chorus.
I didn't
that one.
know he was originally the sort of guy from Teardrop Explodes, nor did I realise that he was a Neolithic culture expert and author and published a book called The Modern Antiquarian in 1998. There you go.
Things that this podcast teaches you.
I'd like to hear him sing a version of World Shut Your Mouth as a Neolithic sort of man. I'd like to hear that. I think that would be interesting and something he could publish in his second volume of The Modern Antiquarian. In brackets,
Really horrible.
they weren't great singers.
It is something to do with their cleft palate.
Yes, it's like that crazy video that I will link. I'm going to have to link it now. In that, where that guy, that woman's making that guy speak like a Neanderthal caveman by pushing into his chest and making him scream 1, 2, 3 at the top of his voice, which all sounds bizarre. But I'll put the link to the YouTube video in the website
it
so
is
you
true.
can check that out for yourselves.
To put it in the show notes, it's probably easier.
Yeah, I'll do that.
True Blue, 28th September at number 3. We're not going to say any more about that. We've said enough about Madonna.
Yeah,
And Graham has opened his heart enough. He'll say something else. He'll go again. He's got so much to open about.
it's too much.
In at number 14, I've Been Losing You by Aha. The first single from the second studio album, Scoundrel Days, an album I prefer to their first album, Hunting High and Low.
I wish I feel like I should know more about Aha, but I know them by the songs that everyone knows.
Scoundrel Days is worth a listen. It's a lot bleaker and darker and has much better. He's got Manhattan skyline on it and things like that. It's a very, very good album, Scoundrel Days, and it moves away from the poppiness to some degree. There's still some poppy stuff on it, but has more sort of that
Okay, well,
Norwegian bleakness, I think, within it. It's good. I like Scoundrel Days. Number 23, Suburbia by the Pet Shop Boys. You really don't like this, do you? I love it.
No, I don't. I think it's a dirge. Even by Pet Shop Boys standards, this is a drone, a monotonous drone. That's
a great tune.
In Suburbia. It's not a great tune. It's dreadful.
It's better than what's in at number 29, which is in the Army Now by Status Quo.
If that's your benchmark for greatness, it's like, well, at least it's better than that. That's not good.
No. I'm not saying I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying it's better than in the Army Now.
Well, everything is better than that. I mean, I like Status Quo, but that's crap by their standards.
No, we're never in the army, so the song is a blatant lie.
It's a lie, yeah. They're singing a song, we're in the army now. No, you're not. You're not going in the army. Not unless they've suddenly decided to put you at the forefront of the battle, playing, Caroline as the tanks stormed across stormed across the opening of the battle. That would be something, though, wouldn't it? That'd be amazing. Someone make that film happen. Get that sequence in Fury that's really harrowing and meaningful, where the tanks are flying across. Just replace the music in that with Caroline by Status Quo. I tell you what, if somebody just do that soon, I'm doing it. So it might have to happen.
He will as well. He will. I've seen him do that sort of thing before.
I'm doing it.
Number 42, To Be a Lover by Billy Idol. Yeah.
One of the Billy Idol tracks I absolutely had no knowledge of.
No, I know it. I think this might be on 11 of the best. So I think I might know it, but it's not one of the... that title, 11 of the best, is pushing it a bit.
Just a bit.
It's because it's like 5 of the 5 that are good.
And none of them written by him.
He's never going to write, was he? But it's 5 that are good, which would probably not be quite as catchy an album. Oh, it's your best of it. Only 5 are good.
I just think Billy Idol, did he actually write any of his own songs? Because
I have no idea.
Money Money isn't by him. White Wedding isn't by him. To Be a Lover isn't by him. That's by William Bell and Booker T. Jones.
I don't know. I've no idea. All I know, he was XTC, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he was
exactly.
lead singer of XTC.
Billy Bone Idol, that's what they called him originally, because he doesn't do anything. Write us a song, Billy. Nah, I'm not doing that.
Boney Idol.
Yeah.
That sounds like Boney M.
Yes,
he
was in Boney M for a while.
Billy Idol, lover of the Rasputin.
Yeah, exactly.
Russia's greatest love machine. He never wrote a song of his own.
Ba 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 ba. Billy Idol, he lives on his own. Ba 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 ba.
Ba, ba, ba.
Billy Idol can't even write.
Billy Idol in the rain.
Tra la 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 la. Absolutely.
He's written nothing again. Tra la 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 la.
He looks like a rocker in the rain.
Every loser wins. My Nick Berry was in at number 66.
Don't. This song is a mathematical anomaly, and it's something that has wound me up from the minute he opened his berry-like beak to now.
I watched The Matrix Reloaded last night, so I feel I could do a speech on this. Ergo, the concurrentness of this song is the anomaly that should be plugged back into the Matrix to bring everything back to normal.
Well, just let me say, right, that everything about this song is wrong. So the logic of the song is stupid, right? Because it should be every winner loses, right? And that's not even true, but it's better than every loser wins, right? Because it makes more sense. So, because if every person that wins may have a chance to lose, and they do so. So every loser wins means that every loser and tosser and idiot stands a chance of winning. So even if you're a loser, you're kind of a winner. Not only is that not true, but it promotes a dangerous narrative enshrining competitive sports to a notion that doing your best is pointless because at some point every loser wins, which means they're all losers. Everyone doing sports is a loser. Nick Berry should be placed in a corn silo and then slowly be filled from the top so we can test out the logic. Let's see if every loser wins. I can tell you now, every Nick Berry's going to lose.
I think you've overthought this song.
No, his lyrics are, every loser wins, once the dream begins, in time you'll see, fate holds the key. I'm sorry.
They make no sense.
No, because every loser cannot win.
That's true. There can only be one winner. That's what winner means.
Exactly.
Because in that notion, we won Euros.
Exactly.
This year.
Exactly. And just as an aside, well, not even an aside, if anyone's wondering who Nick Berry is, by the way, it was a character. Nick Berry is an actual person, but he had a character. I think it was something Wicks. Simon Wicks in EastEnders, which was obviously a soap opera we've talked about before, Dirty Den, Angie Watts later married Brian May from Queen. It's all tied together in some kind of weird multiverse, like the Avengers. And Nick Berry is escaped out of EastEnders to create a song that's mathematically anomalous in every way, to challenge the very logic of time and space and reason, and make every competitive person, even if you're an Olympiad, you're a loser because you win. Because every loser wins.
Avengers Age of Wixie.
He was in there. Do you know that moment in the Avengers movie when they're all running in from all the various openings of the time holes that Doctor Strange opens? Nick Berry's in there, but he immediately falls over and cracks his head open because every loser wins and every winner loses, as it should be, and every berry loses. That's what that song should be called. Every berry loses. But it wasn't as popular a choice.
No,
it was not.
Poor old Nick.
Stupid Nick Berry.
Named after a shaving foot. To quote Top Secret.
Stupid Nick Berry.
Albums. That was the last of the singles. Album 7th September Graceland by Paul Simon. In at number 4.
That's amazingly high for an album of that type.
Well, not really. I mean, you've got things like Genesis and stuff at the top. You've also got things like Dire Straits. These albums are massive in the mid-80s. These big sort of
big
concept-y
blockbuster albums, yeah.
And these singles were everywhere. You know, that you were getting, there's a lot of hype around these kind of stuff. And I presume, and I'm going to guess that You Can Call Me Al was starting to climb the charts at this point. We had the single, and that got a lot of airplay. And this just became his calling card. 16 million copies sold. It's a massive, massive album. He would never have any kind of success like it again. He won't release another album for like about 5 or 6 years.
No, and he became also famous as well for his stand against apartheid in South Africa. He famously played concerts there, and because the album itself is quite musically diverse and ethnically diverse, and with a lot of instruments and musicians from all over the world taking part in that. It's amazing, really. And so it's quite a celebration of multicultural music in every possible way that it could be. In the 80s, this was an antithesis to everything that anyone stood for. In politics, it felt like at the time. So and so we became quite famous because as much as it sounds crazy to even think about now, and we're not going to dive into all of the politics of it all, but just the idea of keeping two kind of different cultures and people apart in the same country, like they did with apartheid in South Africa, seems crazy. And yet, we're right in the heart of it in the middle of the 80s, and obviously later it gets resolved. And he played concerts to all of his fans, regardless of where he was geographically and who they were ethnically, and that makes him an important person. And that album very important at the time. And I think that is part of its celebration, which is why it's so high in the chart.
Yeah. You have people like Peter Gabriel doing songs like Biko and things like that who were also doing it. It seemed very, if you look back on the 80s, a lot of, I don't want to say earnest or self-important, but a lot of pop stars suddenly became very earnestly interested in cultural issues around the world. I mean, the big one was always Sting and the Amazon tribes when he paraded them on Wogan and everything. It always seemed very, very, very peculiar thing And obviously Bono, I think. And
I think Live Aid actually proved that they could make a difference, that their position in the culture and their music they produced did actually have an impact to make a difference. And I think that's what led to things like, I mean, that's my own personal view, but I think that's what led to things like Graceland and many other albums, as you say, there's many other artists. Some of them were on that bandwagon, no doubt about it. But my feeling is that Paul Simon very much was that kind of apolitical figure that wanted people to enjoy his music and just not get involved in the politics, but couldn't avoid it really at certain points. So interesting. People don't believe you when you say these things happen, because it happened in our lifetime, and it seems like it's a lifetime ago. But 30 years down the line seems like such a long time ago, and I suppose it is when you think how, if you just put into context, you think how old now Rambo is as a film, or Rocky IV is as a film. These films are now considered 30-year-old classics. But. And these concepts and things you explain to your modern millennials, they just can't believe a world existed where these things were still around. They seem to position this kind of thinking, this kind of politics, and this kind of racism that was replete around the world. They position this as a thing that happened in the 60s and 50s, something out of time and not in our lifetimes. There is a strange when you look back. We've come a long way in some ways, maybe not in others, but that's enough on Politics Today podcast. Next week.
I was just going to say, at this point in time, the Berlin Wall's still up.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So, that doesn't come down to like 88, 89.
And not only that, my next door neighbour's wall was up, and that's a miracle, because I kick that thing every day to knock it down. My own unique protest. But again, apologies, Mr. Benson.
His first name was Merlin. It was the Merlin Wall.
Do you know his name? No, it wasn't Merlin, really.
I really hope it was.
No, his name was actually Bobby Benson. That's true.
The Benson Wall.
Bobby Benson and his wife B. That's a true fact. It was B and Bobby Benson. I remember saying it's all the B's. Triple B. No,
I'm not putting it in.
Anyway,
press to stop was Paul McCartney's number 8. It's actually press to play, but you should press to stop.
Oh, yeah.
His 6th solo album. I don't know anything of this.
Nope, I don't either. I know it's got Linda McCartney and Paul McCartney on the cover of the album, kind of looking at each other meaningfully. Doesn't mean a lot. For reasons I'm not 100% sure of. Nobody liked her or anything to do with her, but...
Are they eating a sausage?
That would be brilliant, wouldn't it, if it was that and it's like a remake of The Grange Hill with Paul McCartney looking like running away and like a Linda McCartney sausage coming in. But it's an interesting little thing for you. So this was Paul McCartney trying to get back with the in crowd because he felt that his previous efforts had maybe not gone down as well. We won't talk about any of those, but did you see who produced this album?
Hugh Padgham. Pagham.
Hugh Padgham, Hugh Pageham. But this is the guy.
You page him? I'll see him.
You page him and I'll beef him.
I'll ring him.
Anyway, it was Hugh Padgham, I'll ring him, who gave the album this contemporary sound. That producer's the guy that invented the gated reverb drum, which we spoke about. So it's him.
The return.
It's Mr. It's him.
Boom.
So it's him. And it sounds like this. No, don't. I'm not going to put it in again.
Oh, don't do it. You page him. I'll ring him.
Yeah, you page him and I'll ring him.
But don't ring these. In at number 17 was The Way It Is by Bruce Hornsby and The Range.
We spoke about it briefly, didn't we, with its refrain. Diddle-oo, diddle-oo, diddle-oo.
Yeah.
That's the only song I know off that entire album.
Yeah, and it's the only one I care for, so that's it, really. It's not mentioned. 14th September, Break Every Rule. I don't know if that's how it goes. By Tina Turner, came in at number 2.
It's a break every rule. You got to do every syllable, remember? Break every rule.
Every rule. Typical Male is the main single here. Yep. It's a typical male.
That's how Tina Turner speaks. She goes to McDonald's to order a burger. I'll have a burger and cheese.
And fries, but no milkshake, because there's none in the country.
I left a burger in the city. That's a totally different song.
Out at McDonald's. Out in the wilderness.
I'll be your
Do you have
burger?
Do you have burgers and fries? Do.
I can't think of Tina Turner anymore without thinking of Limmy, and that's simply the best sketch. I can't. It's programmed as soon as I do. I think of Limmy doing that sketch, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, what Limmy is,
link
Limmy
to
is
it in the show notes.
Really abstract, brilliant comedian, amazing. Does his own podcast, I believe, as well. So go and check that out. Just Google it. But he's an amazing comedian, and he's an amazing sketch show that he did. And one of his sketches was a I can't even, it's hard to explain what it is, but it's just a guy entering a Tina Turner lookalike competition. But it's actually all Limmy dressed up as, and he gets the Tina Turner dance off. Anyway, it's so perfect.
Don't give the punchline away.
No, just go check it out.
We'll link to it in the show notes. I think that's the easiest way to actually do these things.
Link to show notes, yes.
Yes, we will do. So, Break Every Rule was at number 2. Crash by the Human League was in at number 7. I know, Don't You Want Me by the Human League and their early weirdness. What I did listen to, though, strangely enough, as an aside, I was trying to find a version of the Phil Oakey Electric Dreams track, and I found a live...
Shouldn't be too difficult to track that down.
Well, no, it wasn't, but there was a version I heard on something or other, and it was a live version of it.
Weird.
Phil Oakey's not got a voice for live.
Is he really not?
Not singing that. There's some... He can't hit the high notes. He can't hit those notes in Electric Dreams, or the low notes, or the middle notes either, in fact. He's all over the place. It was dreadful. It was
just been having an off day, because I think Phil Oakey's actually a pretty good singer.
Well, he must be, but the one I heard, I was like, that's not notes you want to hear in regards to this song. Human is the single off this album.
Maybe you was looking at his lookalike, Phil Beachy. It's very similar to Phil Oakey in many ways, just not as good a singer. No,
Bill Elmy.
Yeah, Phil Elmy, Phil Beachy, Phil Piney. None of them are as good.
He's too clingy. He's too clingy, Piney.
It is, and he's
he's always whining about something. He's pining for the fuel.
And he always needs staining. He's just like a guy that needs a stain.
Phil Oakey. Oh no, that is Oakey. That's his name, Phil Oakey.
That's his name, yeah, Mr. Oakey. Yeah.
Oh no.
There was
Phil Ashy.
There's a lot of problems with that particular album. The least of which is that Phil Oakey hated every one of his producers, and the producers put a lot of pressure to sound a certain way. He didn't want that. So they actually just abandoned the recording midway through, or towards the end of the recording of the album. They just left the studio and just went home for him. I think I forget where they'd flown them out to record it, but they just went back to Sheffield. So it was actually finished off by the producers based on what they had. So it sounds overproduced and over crazy, and that's because there's loads of guff in there that they just filled it with. Ironically, one of the songs became kind of Crash, but was quite a hit. Enough Human League fans at the time to give it a bit of licks. I don't think it's nearly as good as anything that they produced prior to that. Certainly not in the same league as Mirror Man or Don't You Want Me or anything like that. But you know what? At this 1986, we're seeing the death of New Romantic, really, aren't we? If not already dead.
Yeah, pretty much. Blandcore is walking over it slowly in a pair of kickers.
Yeah, well, Human League and Mel and Kim compatible in the same decade. I don't know really that they are. So
who knows? Just coming up right behind Human League is "Slippery When Wet" by Bon Jovi at number 8.
That's a really good, solid hair metal album. That is
absolutely. In answer to your question here, which Bon Jovi you like better, this one or New Jersey? This one for me.
Yeah, it's so difficult for me because I really love both albums, but I think "Slippery and Wet" and I think the classic Bon Jovi karaoke classic, which I think you've sang many times, I believe.
I have sang many times karaoke. Badly, no doubt, but you know what? I was drunk and I needed the money, but they didn't pay me anything. So
Living on a Prayer comes from Slippery and Wet and a number of other hits, I don't doubt. I can't remember the other ones, but that's the one that everyone remembers, really. But New Jersey's got Bad Medicine, it's got Lay Your Hands on Me, it's got Dead or Alive. I don't know. I can't decide. I genuinely like both albums equally. And my absolute favourite guitarist, and I have several, but my absolute favourite, top of the tree, favourite guitarist ever is Richie Sambora. And so...
Slippery When Wet, track listing, You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, Wanted Dead or Alive, Raise Your Hands, Never Say Goodbye.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I mean. It's sad because there's so many good tracks on that, and then you got New Jersey with Bad Medicine, and Lay Your Hands on Me is off Bad Medicine. Bad Medicine. Lay Your Hands on Me is off New Jersey.
I didn't say that, I said Raise Your Hands. I said.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But there's such good tracks. So
yeah, I mean they're both great albums. Don't get me wrong. I just prefer Slippery When Wet.
Yeah, no, and I think that's it's a choice between one juicy apple and another juicy apple. So
it is. There's an alternative cover if you look on the wiki page for it, which is it's almost Spinal Tap-ish. In such a fine line between genius and clever, genius and stupid. It's just a close-up of a wet T-shirt.
Why does that not surprise me? I mean,
it was a rejected wet T-shirt cover, and it was used for the Japanese release, according to Wikipedia.
Well, it would get released somewhere, no doubt. It is proper Spinal Tap territory when it comes to Smell the Glove.
Really
is it Smell the Glove? It's sexy, innit? Sexist, Nigel.
It's sexist, Nigel.
Such a fine line. Have you seen Duke Fame's latest cover? Anyway.
Look, let's not go down a Spinal Tap
No.
quotation route.
No, but
We'll be here
both
all-
great albums.
We'll be here all night.
Slippery and Wet is a great album. Amazing videos at the time, which got massive airplay, and you can't really go wrong with it, can you?
Yeah. We go down that route, they'll still be booing us when
Bon
when we
Jovi come on.
Yeah. And number 11 was Four by Huey Lewis and the News. Hip to be square on this one, yeah. So this is off the back of Back to the Future, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, fourth album. Not a big fan of them.
Yeah. So sport and stuff, they're okay, aren't they? They're kind of American radio rock, friendly rock, aren't they?
Just AOR.
That's what they are.
No,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
21st September, True Stories by Talking Heads, in at number 7.
Not a film I've seen, and not a soundtrack / album I have a lot of memory of.
No, neither me
So
nor me. 28th September was Talking with the Taxman About Poetry, an album named after the Vladimir Mayakovsky poem, according to this.
yes.
I've seen Billy. I'm not even sure I've heard a full song by him ever. I've seen him live. I saw him at the Great British Music Weekend in 1991, where he was. I think he wasn't on the bill. I think, but he played anyway. It's like they couldn't keep him out.
He just went up stage and was like, I'm playing.
Yeah.
And I'll fight anyone that tries to get me off this stage. And like,
It was the Saturday night. There was, if I remember right, there was The Cure, Jesus Jones, Carter, Unstoppable Sex Machine. There's about 6 bands on. New Model Army, I think, played. That was a good gig, that was. But yeah, he played as well. And I'm pretty sure he wasn't on the list.
Was it
Maybe
politically
he was.
motivated single guitar playing stuff by any chance?
It was. It was the time I went to the bar.
Yeah, I don't
to say.
dig Billy Bragg stuff, but you know what? That doesn't mean to say it's not amazingly good. I'm sure for those that love it, it is. It's not my cup of tea. That's all.
No, Britain's Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Maybe. Vigilante by Magnum was at number 24.
Bloody Magnum.
All I can think of is just hair and leather.
Yeah.
Or Magnum PI, which would be better.
Is it
It'd be
Hair
great
and
if
Leather
this was
is one of their albums, I think.
If this was an album by Tom Selleck, that'd be way better. But
or it's recorded by people eating Magnum ice lollies. Now that would be something, wouldn't it?
It would be. It would be.
Because they are delicious. They really are. Not that I'm sponsoring them in any way.
No, we don't sponsor them.
No,
they don't sponsor us.
They don't sponsor. We don't sponsor
They
Magnum.
don't sponsor us. No.
My picture on the wrapper. Graham likes them. Like, who? Don't know who that is. Why is he on that?
Sales are through the roof this week.
Are they trying
more?
Are they trying to put people off by them like they do with cigarette packets by just putting random pictures of Northerners on them? That'll do it. Not buying them bloody things. If you end up like that.
Magnum. Graham
Magnum.
approved. Oh dear. Anyway, the album cover features a unicorn. Of course it does.
I was going to say,
Of course it does. Of course it does. That's it. That's the music. It's too much of it. Let's finish and we'll move on to because we've still got loads of games. There's still loads.
Loads of them.
It's like the number of games we have coming up was an entire episode the other week.
It was. However, that said, just remember that some of these games are not going to take long.
Yeah, we said that about bloody Jet Gladiator.
It didn't take long. It was
Whatever.
2.5 minutes, and that's probably too much.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. Right, that's music over with. We'll be back after this short break, so stay around for the next load of games.
And a great big shout out to our sponsor, DavidHearnWriter.com, where you'll find bargain books, ebooks, and audiobooks. Coming soon, Dave's next book, Escape from the Commodore 64, will transport you back to the 80s as Sarah, who must beat gold medal and Sizzler classics to get out of the bread bin alive. Check that perm, adjust that turtleneck, and prepare those shoulder pads as you go on an 8-bit adventure unlike any other. You'll love it, you will. Dave's podcast pick is Arac. He reckons casting those nets and making friends with all those creatures was a hoot. I just didn't have the legs for it, Dave.
Hello, welcome back. We've got more games to get at here, so let's get into them quickly. Okay, Graham, our first one, Floyd the Droid. What's Floyd the Droid all about?
The sewers in the major city of the world are in crisis, and they need cleaning and removing creatures that roam through them. And it's now considered too much for anyone to do, so they get a droid to do it. And that droid would be you. So you are Floyd, and you've been basically assigned to sort out the mess in the sewers in London, and then you move on to other cities. So you start with a choice of situations where you can program and set the procedures for him to follow, and then you can set to kind of an auto thing, and then they can deal with the controls, and you can also control them in manual. And so the idea is that you control it via an isometric kind of view with small parts of the sewers. It was a bit like looking through it, like a robot going through different tunnels at different angles and aspects, and then at certain points it would go to a kind of a side view shooty bit, and then it would go back to this kind of isometric view that you controlled with the joystick. So there were dirt blockages and creatures in there, think rats, bats, stuff. You had little radar which changed the colour when you was kind of near something, and the idea of the game is then to go around and clear these things out on the levels. You've got kind of energy which can be drained by the various encounters that you have with the baddies. That's kind of the nexus and crux of this game. Graphically quite nice, and some decent ideas in here. It felt like a game that was underdeveloped in that it had all the... I think the graphics were done first. That's the bit I can say.
Yes, yeah.
And then the game logic was kind of applied afterwards. There wasn't a lot of sound in it, so there's not a lot to write home about there. And there didn't seem to be a lot of things to do, so it didn't feel like a game that had a lot of fun in it, because I wasn't wholly sure that was A, in control of Floyd, and B, what it was really about. So it felt bitty and it was jumping between options and icons and different views, none of which felt like there was any kind of coherent plan to anything. It just kind of felt a bit haphazard. So it went from isometric tunnel to side shooter to kind of a menu with icons and some kind of movement management. No idea in how that related to what the game was about and how it felt. It didn't feel coherent, and it just felt like it wasn't fully developed into the game it probably was meant to be. And because of that, it kind of tuned me out. So nice looking, pricey for what it is. And I think there was some good ideas in there. Definitely developers with some skill. The sort of the isometric view was quite nice. The way you sort of saw the tunnels and you went inside bits and it kind of exposed parts of the tunnel. But I don't know. I just felt like I never really felt like I was really doing much of anything that made sense. Just when I thought I'd grasped the idea of what the game was about, I ended up sort of in a side scrolly shooting thing with these various items and robots in the tunnel, and then I was back to in the tunnel again, thinking, what am I doing? So I kind of got bored of it in the end. So graphically nice though. What about you?
Well, I could just repeat your thingy because you said exactly pretty much what I've said here. Well, I've noted down. It's exactly the same, really. It's a strange isometric 3D sewer cleaner with a programmable droid who has to take down rodents in 2D. It's not something I'd ever come across before. It's a game I'd never heard of. I'd never played it before, never seen it before, so it was all new. But it was all a bit dull. And I've noted, like you said, the isometric visuals are nice enough. And you can shout boo, which is very odd.
I forgot about
which is
that.
weird.
You can, yeah.
But I didn't understand why, and I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be doing. And then it crashed on me, so I was like, oh, well.
It was buggy.
And I've noted here, but I'm not sure if there's much of a game here, and it feels like another tech piece looking for content. We've seen this for things like Electrical Glide and things like that, that there's competent tech people flexing their tech muscles, but not really doing much in the way of game design. There's not much game here. There's not much to actually do. And so it feels like, but these graphics are cool, aren't they? It's like, great, make a demo. And then until you can actually put something, great graphics are fine, but you need to be able to do something with them. And there's not a lot going on here. And I just found it a bit just randomly dull.
Cluttered. It was a clutter of ideas that amounted to nothing that worked.
Yeah. If they'd have just, for me, if they'd have just concentrated on the isometric view and had monsters in that view, or stuff that you had to sort of zap around or move about or push out, or some block puzzles, or just some game mechanics.
Yeah.
Rather than switching to that weird 2D view.
Yeah.
I don't. They can clearly draw in 3D in an isometric 3D way. Draw me a bat in 3D. Draw me a rodent. Have stuff that unblock things, or especially these days, you could be taking out fat burgers and things like that, and all kinds of crazy stuff in sewers.
Yeah.
There's still all manner of stuff. Give me a giant alligator.
Yes. Yes.
Something.
I think you're right. Possibly a giant squid.
Giant squid, yeah. Anything. But just, I think that there was, like you said, a cacophony of ideas where they wanted to do a lot of different things. And it may have felt, because we've said this with a few games, it's like, we need to have icons. Like, no, you don't. You don't need to have icons.
No.
If your game doesn't need icons, don't put bloody icons in. In this, they're shoehorned off onto an entire other incomprehensible screen.
Well, you summarised it really nicely, and I'm not sure if it's the last episode or the episode before that, but you said, just just getting all the various component parts of a recipe and all of the, getting nice things and putting them into one thing doesn't make it super nice. It just means it, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And you've got to tie these things together with a coherent something. Otherwise, you just end up with a game where you're wandering around tunnels for no reason whatsoever. And they could have added a super pipeline logic to it, couldn't they? So you were fixing things and tunnels were leaking, but there isn't any of that as far as I could see. I was just, nice graphics, shame about everything else, really.
Yeah. 62% probably about right, maybe.
When they get it right, they get it right.
But yeah, I don't. But I think 10 quid is way too expensive for this.
Stupid.
Yeah, way too expensive. Anyway, that's Floyd the Droid, lacking in, just like an empty sewer of a game.
If this was a game, it'd be Ken Barlow.
Not a Baldwin. Would it be a Curly Watts?
Curly Watts, yeah.
It'd be a what's her face? Vera.
It'd be a Benny.
Here, Jack. Get me 10 fags down the shop.
Get us 10 fags, will you? Her voice progressively got lower and deeper, didn't it, towards Deirdre's? I mean, sadly, she obviously had illness that made that happen, which we shouldn't mock at all. But
no, we're not.
But she was on TV, and I'm talking about her character, not her real person. And the character did eventually talk like that. Here. Do you remember Phyllis in the Coronation Street? Here, Percy, love. Percy. My Percy's twingling.
And do you remember how out of place? Who was the owner of the Rovers? The really posh old woman.
Oh, that was. I was saying Annie Nightingale then, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't Annie Nightingale.
No, it wasn't Annie Nightingale. She's a DJ.
Radio 1 DJ. Did she own it? It was Annie Sugden, was it? Or Annie somebody? Or
Miss Sugden. Yeah, Annie Sugden.
Was it Annie Sugden? Somebody, Annie somebody. I'm sure it was.
Here, Jack, could you just do that for us, please?
Jack.
She was very posh.
Yeah, because she was Jack Duckwood. Yeah. What I want you to do is go and change those barrels. They've been unchanged for at least the last 2 minutes, and that's far too long for barrel changeage.
She wasn't Irish.
The barrel changeage. That's go and change those barrels, will you?
Oh, barrels often suffer from massive lack of change.
That's when Jim, what's his name, would come in. Liz.
in his combat gear.
Because he's passed away now as well, so it's all doom and gloom.
It's my job to say who's dead.
There's a lot of Coronation Street stars that have,
and who's not dead.
Tragedy, really.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's been going from 1960s. They're bound to be.
Yeah, non-stop. They never stop recording that show. Once you're in it, that's it. It's like the Truman Show.
That show is cursed. It's the cursed show.
It's the Truman Show for Ken Baldwin. That's what it is. It's Ken Baldwin's Truman Show. We've watched him since he was born.
There's no one called Ken Baldwin.
There is now.
It's a horrible mashup of Mike and Ken and Mike Barlow.
Mr. Barlow, put down your cross, face the master.
Oh, Ken, could you imagine the Coronation Street Salem's Lot?
Not only do I imagine it, I want to see it right now.
I do. Who's bought that shop on the corner? I don't know.
A soap opera version of Salem's Lot would be hilarious.
You can do nothing against the master. Stop, holy man! You cut the boys through it. Back, holy man, back, shaman, back, priest! What would you give for this miserable boy? The master wants you. Throw away your cross, face the master, your faith against his faith. Could you do that? Is your faith enough?
Open the window. Open the window, Mark. Let me in, Mark.
Hey, how you got up here? Ow.
You're not coming in. It's too bloody late. Bugger off. That is a proper sideline. That has made me want to see that.
Coronation Lot.
There's something about that house, love.
The Barlow house. Here he's talking about our house, Deirdre.
He's talking about our house. Do you think an house could be full of murder?
Here, Ken, come back in.
You must procure. Never mind this procure business. Speak English. Get some bloody padlocks on that bloody box. It's cold. Bloody things moving around in the truck.
I borrowed this van. I got to get back in the morning.
I borrowed this van off Ben. Got to get it back to him.
He wants it back tomorrow. If there's any damage, he'll do my head in.
Anyway, back to where we were, which was
Floyd the Droid.
Floyd the
Not
Droid.
very good.
Crap.
Bit empty.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. Our next game. Oh, I can't concentrate now. Is
Put your cross down. Face the bloody master. For God's sake. Your faith against his bloody faith. Is yours enough, is it?
I've got to kill you. Run, boy, run. Anyway, enough.
Next.
All right. Next up. It's got a sizzler.
I'm glad you got this one, actually. I'm glad you got it because I didn't want it, and I'm glad you got it.
Oh, well, all right. So our next game is Arac. A-R-A-C. Arac. So what is Arac? Well, it's from Addictive Games. So the people who brought you Football Manager, I believe, and that terrible advert for Boffin.
With his face on it.
With his face on it, yeah. And his face appears all the way, it doesn't appear all the way through this game. Okay, so what is Arac? Now, bear with me, because obviously I don't know what your opinion is, but it's a flick screen explore 'em up. And it has some interesting mechanics that are based around capturing animals with a net and using their abilities to enhance your own. Mm-hmm. So you play this droid, the Arac. When the game starts, now there's two different things here. You get a different choice at the start. You can play the long game or the short game. So in the long game, you start off, you're missing the legs and the body part of what is essentially the rest of the droid. So you're kind of just the middle section with
the stem
dome, the stem with a kind of dome-like helmet thing where you can fire this net out of.
This is sounding rude. I have to say, I'm sorry.
I know. Well, it does look rude. It's basically it's a stem with
that fires out a net
to catch helmets. It's very webby. So it's missing its legs and body. That when you have them, they allow you to become a sort of spider droid type thing. So the first part of the game sees legless Arac, which is what I've called him, trying to collect the body parts to enable it to become Spider Arac. You do this from moving screen to screen and firing a new net out of your head to capture the various creatures who can then be used to progress. I didn't manage to capture them all. I only managed to capture some flies and the bear thing. The flies allowed me to do a much bigger jump when attached, and the bears just stand there and bounce. I didn't quite understand what they were doing. There are also jellyfish and stingrays and rock chomper things, but I can never manage to catch any of them. If you manage to collect all parts of the spider, you can then progress into the citadel, where fast-moving, what look like snails from above attack you. It's very odd, this game. If you play the short game, you start as Arac. You start as the full spider Arac, and therefore you can get straight into the citadel. You shoot stuff out still. Your bullets bounce around. This game reminded me massively of a game we're going to probably be looking at in a few episodes' time, and that is Sacred Armor of Antiriad. There's probably Sacred Armor of Antiriad is probably a much more well-known game than Arac, I'm going to guess. But this is very similar in the way it kind of looks quite similar. It's sort of high-res sprites, lots of colour, lots of single-colour sprites as well, but lots of high-res stuff, but done in that way that is actually quite well put together. So it's very hard to actually say whether this is good or not. It's interesting, and it's also as well, it's a game that doesn't outstay its welcome. There are 100 screens or so, which is
100.
A nice number. It's 100, so it feels completable. It feels doable. We've got so many games. What's that one, Lands of Havoc, with its 2,000 screens, or 1,600, or that Sean Southern one, Hero of the Golden Talisman, with 500. It's just too much. It's too big. No one cares.
Too many screens.
Starquake, too big. This has 100. That feels doable. I could probably progress through that, and as I got better at it and started to work my way through it. It's also quite interesting as well in that the when you do the long game, the legs and the body parts are randomized throughout the level, so you're never in the same place. One game I started, they were right next to me. Well, one of the bits was, then they weren't there the next game, so they're randomly put around the thing, so you have to go exploring. It's a very unusual, and it's a really good-looking game, but my main complaint with it is it's just a little too obtuse for its own good. And if it had a little bit more explanation of its mechanics, just communicated a little better to you what you're supposed to be doing, why you're doing stuff. I mean, Sacred Armor Antiriad is fairly easy to understand. You're building you're getting all the bits for the armor. Kind of makes sense. And then you got to get into the middle bit.
He's naked at that beginning, because otherwise you're going to be around with that kind of sound that we spoke about before.
We did speak of that. This, you don't get any kind of that. You just are a dog.
Spurting out webs.
Spurting out webs everywhere, capturing animals within them before you take them inside and then use them for your own nefarious means. So if it had a little bit more onboarding, a little bit more explaining to you what the hell you're supposed to be doing and how the mechanics work and how the thing, and I get it, trial and error and trying to understand stuff, but I couldn't understand why I couldn't pick up jellyfish, for one thing. I kept netting them, but they just kind of flashed. Why I couldn't pick up the manta rays. There's no there's no obvious way to be picking these things up. And I think in that respect, it's not very friendly. And with a little bit more help in-game, just to sort of say, right, do this to get that, or this could have been really enjoyable, and I would have liked it a lot more. As it is, I think if you like these sorts of things, this is a very accessible one as a game to play in this kind of genre that looks good and is doing some unusual stuff with its mechanic. I just found it a little bit impenetrable. What about you?
Yes, I agree, actually, pretty much exactly with you. I thought it was very nice looking and very palace style, if that's even a style of thing. But that kind of look, that kind of almost Odin slash Antiriad style graphics, very similar, nice animation. But I think it all hit a game that was often frustrating and actually didn't really seem to want to play fair. So it's okay starting the game, and it's got 2 levels of starting, as you say. I found getting the component parts for Arac to be really tough because the controls for Arac without his legs and everything else are actually really hard. Capturing the creatures and utilizing them is also difficult in any way that's immediately playable. So there's a nice game in here. It just felt like it was trapped a little bit in, like you say, a lack of direction, and by that I mean a lack of directive. So, give me a few more hints. Tell me a bit more how I'm going to get along with these things. Jumping about the levels is really frustrating and difficult, and it's not easy to get around in that initial environment, even as the robot, sort of the stem. And shooting webs didn't always seem successful, but with no real reason why, and it just felt like you couldn't. It didn't gel as the full thing. It felt like loads of good ideas that were nearly there with really lovely graphics. No real sound in there to speak of either. So I think there's a good game in there, and it's quite challenging. Probably a bit hard in some way, bit possibly, And let's be careful because we're now talking about a really hard shaft that spurts out webs in this game. So I'm not sure how that Arac. But when you play as Arac, and you've got these sort of spider legs, and you can jump up and down the levels and crawl on the ceilings. It's actually pretty clever, the mechanics of the game. I think I would have liked to have got to that part quicker, and then just exploited being Arac and played as Arac a bit more and got more out of that than having to sort of circumvent that through difficulty by joining the 20-minute quick short game, just so I could try that out. And it was clearly something they realised because it had a 20-minute short game in it. So, But 100 screens is quite a nice benchmark to set as a sort of, this is what it's going to be. Again, some great ideas, very nice looking, but I think it lacked the final coherence that was required to make it really great. And I think if it had have had that, you'd have been talking about a real classic Commodore 64 game with Arac. I think it just misses the mark. And again, I don't think, and I hate to say it really, because it is quite good. Price-wise, okay, it's pretty good for what it is. Score-wise in Zap, 93, I'm sorry, but I don't think it deserved to be that high. I would have put it in the 80s, for sure, but I don't think it's worthy of a sizzler at 93%. I think it's not quite playable enough for that. Maybe I needed to give it more time. I did try it quite a lot, and I just found it really hard to get around.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because you can't jump. All you can do is bounce.
Yeah, you can't really jump onto things, and you're sort of going through levels on different platforms, and it's just hard to get around initially to try and find the legs that you require to be Arac. So I found that quite difficult.
If it was standard platforming where you could actually move and jump, but I can see why they've gone for what they've done. But I don't know, it just doesn't. Yeah, I think the levels are not conducive to that control method.
No, because in Tyriad, there was progression. You start off as Tal, and you're running around the lower levels, and then you find the sacred armor, and then you find the various power-ups to it, and then you have to then tackle the Citadel. This didn't feel like that progression was immediately obvious, nor easy to do, nor something that was going to happen in the next million years if you started off on the really long game. It felt like it was impossible to. And looking at where the location of some of the spider legs were, the Arac legs, I'm thinking, I don't know how I'm going to get to that. I don't have a clue. It's not clear what capturing these things actually does and in what way they help me and how I use them. It was just a bit weird. So.
It was. But yeah, it could. I think there's a good game in there, just needed a little bit more help for the player. Looking at it now. Anyway, there you go. That's Arac. Right, next. I like Danger Mouse. I'm not sure I like Danger Mouse in Double Trouble, though. What about you, Graham? Tell us about Danger Mouse in Double Trouble.
Danger Mouse was a hugely successful animated cartoon show featuring a James Bond pastiche mouse, a sidekick called Penfold, fighting the evil enemies of Baron Greenback, and Stiletto, his sort of sidekick, and various other characters. And that was the kind of the mainstay. Baron Greenback would have an evil plot, but Danger Mouse would unveil it with meat. He would unveil and undo the plot and so forth. So this game, you would think, has plenty of material to go at. Really easy, one colour, almost two colour character, maybe even three at a push. Easy to think of the characters in a situation because there's plenty of material from the animated show to think of a plot. Even for a game, you could just base it on one of the episodes, let alone any of the series. He lives in a pillow box. He's got a sort of a flying car. Obviously, everything's kind of to mouse scale as well, so there's all that to think about. This game could have written itself in its logic. It could have easily done that. What you end up with, however, is a game that's based around the idea that Baron Greenback has created a clone of Danger Mouse, and you've got to spring into action, and there's 3 stages to the game, and you've got to complete those stages in order to sort of defeat the evil Baron Greenback. So you've got flying through the jungle in your aero car is one of the levels, shooting at bits shoot 'em uppy really. Then you've got a sort of jungle-esque avoiding the contact with sort of the wild animals and jumping on the back of crocodiles, a bit like Pitfall actually, sort of Pitfall-y really. And not even as good as Pitfall, which is sad, since Pitfall came out in, 1981 or 1980 or something? And then the final game is you've got it's set in like an enemy base, and you've got to destroy the sort of power stuff for Baron Greenback's evil doppelganger, which involves copying a sequence of colour light, essentially, a bit like a sort of a follow the leader kind of thing. So my take on this is the graphics in it are really inept, considering it's $2.99, I know, but the trouble with this game is I like Danger Mouse, and I don't get how you can make a bad game out of it. I don't get it. Everything is there for you. Easy, already animated characters. It's not like you even have to think about what Danger Mouse would look like and how to animate him. All of that already exists. All of it. All of the thematic, all of the colours, all of colour schemes, all of the characters, all of the voices and the tonality and the way they speak to each other, all of the plot lines, all of the stories of the cartoon. All of it is written. If you can't make a game and all of that stuff exists, then I don't get why you would even try. And so this game feels like somebody had a go. So you end up with really crappy side-scrolling stuff, Pitfall-based rubbish. It felt cheap and nasty and like it was badly thought about, with poor graphics all the way through. I just don't get how it's hard to make a decent Danger Mouse game, or even at least, I mean, even in that crappy Flintstones game, they managed to make a decent Fred Flintstone, even though the rest of the game was utter crap. So it's just shoddy. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and it's such a sad waste of potential, to the point when I think, I don't think there was even a Danger Mouse game ever again after that, which is the real tragedy, because I can't help but think that's a really great game waiting to be made. It just never happened for the Commodore 64, and at 30% for $2.99, it's just awful, and it played badly, and I really hated it. So that was my take. What about you?
Yeah, same. This was awful. It was a 1984 release as well, wasn't it? So it's a budget re-release of a couple of years old. Yeah, it's old budget. So everything you've said about it is spot on. Simple mechanics and boring visuals make for a boring, crap Danger Mouse game. You shoot music at animals incomprehensibly. I don't even understand what that is. You climb trees and jump on the backs of alligators, in some kind of, as you said, Pitfall kind of way. But the climbing the trees bit was stupid. You have to get to the top, don't you, to start a stampede? Yeah. It's just stupid. Makes no sense. You have to do that 3 times. And then you get to that code breaker thing, which was just tedious, boring. Oh, it was pointless. It was rubbish. It was just really rubbish. And even at £3, this is dreadful. A £3, a £3 turd from 2 years before is still a £3 turd. Yeah. And this was a shiny turd in a Danger Mouse suit, and nobody wants that. No, this is the equivalent of someone shitting in your hands and then making you clap. So nobody wants that. Nobody wanted this game. No, it'd be like smushing Penfold's head between your hands. I like Danger Mouse. Everyone likes Danger Mouse. Yeah, it's one of the most popular British cartoons and of its time. I mean, this is what baffles me. It's like with V, and we've spotted this with a couple of others. These are huge licenses. It's not like this is some guy that's just created Danger Mouse and thought, oh no, that'd be quite cool. This is the British equivalent in the 80s, as popular as Mickey Mouse. A huge character, massive branding and back catalogue and well, I don't get it. I just don't. It's such a sad waste of a license. It is. And the Double Trouble, I suppose, because someone's making a clone of him. It's a rubbish title as well. Yep. It's just a shame because, like you said, it should be I don't know, it should be relatively come up with something around Danger Mouse, and like you said, it's animated, so the sprite should be relatively easy to do. I don't know. Yeah, poor showing.
I get the feeling this was given to the guy that made Not on Crockery and the game
it's
about
not
crisps.
Willow Pattern guy.
No, I mean, I don't think it is, but, it's someone that's clearly affiliated. Can you make us a game about a mouse? I suppose I can. Is it a famous mouse? No, well, it is, but don't you worry about that.
Yeah, rubbish.
Does he need to be in danger? No, not really.
Let's move on because we've got lots to look at still. That's enough about Danger Mouse in Double Trouble. Right, what's next? Well, next is another budget game. These are both budget games, but weren't in the budget section, so make of this what you will.
That the mystery continues.
So the next is a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, and it is Warhawk.
Woo.
So Warhawk, as I said, it's a fairly solid vertical scrolling shoot 'em up inspired by the arcade game Star Force and ably assisted by a thumping good Rob Hubbard score. And it's a good Rob Hubbard tune in this game. So it's a sci-fi style vertical scrolling shoot 'em up where you traverse various sort of bases, sort of sci-fi style bases. You get attacked from the top by various patterns of stuff to shoot. You get to the end of each level, loads more stuff comes on, you shoot it all. If you've managed to keep all some of your health, you survive, you progress to the next level, which is fairly similar, just slightly different colouring, with more waves, get to the end, shoot them, so forth and so on. It's what it is, it's a shoot 'em up. It's a relatively simple shoot 'em up. It's only £2, so, for £2, this is actually pretty good. It's not perfect. The visuals are okay, we've gone for bas relief, but they're a bit chunky bas relief. Not the best I've seen. The sprites are okay. It moves fairly fast and it's smoothly, and it moves along quite a good old fair click. The issues I had when playing it primarily focus around one main thing, and that is the collision detection. Because I found the collision detection to be a problem, and that I was pretty sure I was shooting stuff and it wasn't dying, which is never what you want in a shoot 'em up. You need to know if your bullet hits, they're dead. They will blow up and they're dead. If you can't trust that, then it drives a wedge between you and the reliability of the mechanics in the game itself, and that was my main issue with this. They're a bit off, not always as spot on as they could be. The chunkiness of the visuals as well mean there's not that much screen real estate. Things could be a bit smaller. It's not as chunky as one we're going to look at next week, but there's still a bit too much on the chunky side. I would like things to be a bit smaller. I was also not a huge fan of the wobbly bullets that hang around on the screen for ages. Like, they take ages when you get shot at. They kind of home in on you, and then you go past, they kind of just wobble about near the bottom for a bit, meaning you can't go near them. And the stages get a bit samey. There's not much variety to them, and the patterns are a bit, they're okay, but there's not that many of them. It's not a terrible game by any means. I mean, it got 80% in Zapped. They liked it, and I think for £2, 80% is about right for this. I think if you got this for £2, you'd be quite happy with it. I do remember playing it quite a lot back in the day, because for £2, it's worth it. And you find, actually, this is a good game for a couple of quid. The problem I had was its lack of response, and its collision detection and the sameness of the stages just got to me in the end, and that made me just stop playing, because it was like, I'm not really that invested to get much further onto another stage. It's probably going to look the same and have the same kind of mechanics. I know shoot 'em ups are shoot 'em ups, but the mechanics are sort of brought in by the different waves or the different enemies that attack and how they're put together. This never seemed to sort of get a kind of cohesion and get the combination of mechanics together correctly. It's all right though. I don't know. Did you like it? I know it's made by someone you know, isn't it? So.
Well, it is, yes. It's made by my friend Michael Ware, the Great Flash, S-Express member, which was a demo group that I was a founder member of, and he was in there, and even you were in there, AD, at one point.
At one point I was.
So, is it a good game? Yeah, I actually bought Warhawk back then for the $1.99 it was, so
I did too. Yeah, I did.
And I was, at the time, looking for a decent shoot-'em-up. It is a decent shoot-'em-up. Its graphics are a bit chunky, that base relief doesn't quite work so well here, but it's okay. It's a hard game. There's no upgrade tree, is there, in it? So you're just kind of shooting forever. And also, I think there's no lives, is it? You just got energy, and once that's done, you're dead.
Yes. It restores at the beginning of every level, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But in that sense, it's kind of, that makes it tricky, to say the least. So it's a tricky game. It might have been better with lives. It might have been better with all those things. The enemy patterns, I felt a bit... They were, like you said, it's a repetitive, and it's a punishing repetitive game. Eventually, I think, like you, I got tired of sort of doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And, that might be true of all shoot 'em ups, but I think it lacks the bosses. It lacks the final sort of stage bosses and things. And it has waves, doesn't it, towards the end of each level, but it lacks the big boss, the R-type style big boss. I know that's a side scroller, but you know what I mean.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Then that Ikaruga style big boss that you get and the shooting the different points and all of that sort of stuff. So I don't know if it predates that. I don't know what the original arcade that it's based upon is like. Probably has those, I'd have thought. So as a $1.99 blast 'em up, it was enjoyable in that capacity. The sounds in the game are good. Obviously, it does have that really good Rob Hubbard soundtrack. It's not an original Rob Hubbard piece. It's actually based upon The Unknown Planet by John Keating. So if you really want to feel the need, you can go and listen to that on YouTube and listen to the kind of the original version of the Warhawk music. And I think there's actually two versions of the Warhawk music. There's Warhawk and there's Proteus. And I'm sure somebody much more knowledgeable than me, they'll be able to tell you all about the differences and everything else. Long and the short of it is the music really good. Regardless, does it fit the game? That was Zapp's problem with the music. They weren't sure, and I kind of sort of see where they're coming from, because if I think of a game that is, I know it's a side-scrolling game, but if we take a game like Soul Feast on the Mega CD, which is one of my favourite side-scrolling shoot-'em-ups of all time, that I actually really like, that and Nemesis, but let's just take Soul Feast. The in-game music when you're shooting really suits. Even on Soul Dees on the Mega Drive, it really suits that kind of pace of game. It suits it perfectly. Now, could you say the same about Warhawk? I don't know. It's kind of over melodic, I think, for a shoot-up. Anyway, it is what it is, and it's good. I don't know if it suits this game perfectly, but it's still good. And 80% is pretty much bang on. So I know I keep saying that they keep getting the scoring really wrong, but I think they've got actually that pretty much right. But for $1.99, it's a no-brainer. It was at the time. I had no brains and I bought it. So for $1.99, I was happy with my purchase. I was much happier about that than when I got Wing Commander, let me tell you. But that's something we'll talk about later.
Oh no, not Wing Commander. Yeah. Warhawk. It is perfect £2 fodder. I think that's what I would say about it. Really, I think that's in and of itself. If it was full price or any more, you'd be like, no chance, no. But for £2, you shoot stuff. It does exactly what it says on the tin. There's a nice title screen. And at least it has a bit as well where you actually fly out the main bit. Yeah,
it does at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some nice elements of presentation there. Yeah, it's a £2 game, and I think it is what it is. It just has some issues, but for £2, I think I was quite happy with it back in the day, and I'm probably the same. It is. It has been surpassed many times by other shooters. Let's not beat around the bush. Would you go back to this? I don't know. No. But when we bought this for £2 back then, I was happy with it. And
it kept me occupied for a while, in the same way that Panther did when I bought that.
Oh God, Panther, yeah. All right, yeah. Well, there you go. Okay, so that's Warhawk. Yeah, we like it. It's all right. Well, it's all right. It's £2. It's a £2 game, and I think it is. It's what it is. So that was that. That's Warhawk. We are now into although they were budget games, we're now into our Cheapers Creepers section.
Jeepers Creepers, where'd you get those peepers? Jeepers Creepers, where'd you get those eyes?
And the first one we have up, we've got 3 more before we end this huge mammoth episode. We have is next week's just as big. Matron. Galaxibirds for £1.99. Graham, Galaxibirds. Go on.
I'd never come across Galaxibirds before, ever.
Neither had I.
And there was a few real surprises along the way.
Yes, there was.
One, it was Sensible Software, which I didn't know. I didn't even know this game existed. My first idea of Sensible Software was Parallax.
Yep.
So when I saw that this was Sensible Software, I thought, oh, okay. So, and this is a Galaxians riff, essentially. So it's a shoot 'em up based around the Galaxians idea, and Galaxians is like a Space Invaders where they kind of move around a lot more, for want of a better description. So it's just not a very good version of Galaxians. As a shoot 'em ups go, it's bullets that you fire move far too slow, so the enemies are moving way quicker, which means that I think it's impossible. So, and it has quite I think it is. I think that it has quite a nice look and feel, albeit impossible. And it sort of, the sounds in it are kind of just become very, very, very annoying. So it's a dodge the birds, such as they are, and that's kind of it. You're supposed to be shooting back at them, but because your bullets have no pace, I don't think it's going to work. My only take on this was that they should have perhaps licensed this to Jeff Capes and have some kind of Jeff Capes Galaxibirds, because he made real life Galaxibirds, massive budgies. So there's an opportunity there for a license that never was. I just thought, if this is Sensible Software and it's very early, if it's in its nappies, then I suppose it's okay, but it's not a great shooter. And considering this is like side by side with Warhawk at $1.99, you're going to go for Warhawk rather than this. It felt like it was a game that was perhaps never meant to be released, really. I don't know quite the lineage of it. I'd never heard of it. And I've spoken many, many times to John Hare from Sensible Software back then. I know him very well. He's a very lovely guy, and I don't think he's ever mentioned Galaxibirds, so there may be a good reason for that. Maybe it predates him, I don't know.
No, it doesn't. He's down as the graphics and title screen, John Hare.
He is a good at graphics, and the graphics are okay, and there's nothing wrong with them. The game felt like it was just a bit unplayable.
Chris Yates
for me,
is coder.
So it's definitely sensible. It's just...
I'm not sure it's sensible.
I think, it's just it's Sensible Software, I think, before they really became Sensible Software. So, and if anything, it's quite an interesting software anomaly in that respect, but in every other respect, it's not a very good game. Sorry, John, but it's not. What did you think?
Well, I don't know if this game is actually meant to be taken seriously. They don't in the review, and I think I'm kind of on board with that because I think it's a piss take of shoot 'em ups. So yes, it's like Galaxians. It's also a bit like Phoenix, which was the other one. But it's so randomly.
It could be a parody.
It's something so randomly nonsensical. It feels like. And I've put here, this feels very much like my first game. It's like, I don't know what John and Chris did for this, or whether they came at it as, I'm presuming they're quite young at this point. They're only 18, 19 or something, would they? Mid-teens?
Yeah, got to be, 18.
So it's a case of, let's make a game. We're learning how to program on the C64. We're learning how to do stuff. Let's do a really basic, stupid shoot 'em up. And as you said, these sort of things were being picked up. It's a Firebird title, isn't it? Is it Firebird? Let me have a look at that cover.
I don't know. I bet it is.
It is Firebird Silver Range. So my thought is, as we've said before, you go to Firebird and you say, hey, we've made this. And I don't know if that's what they did or whether they sent it in. I have no idea. Maybe, if they could get in contact with you, if they listen.
It's Firebird. They would have shown them a picture of an egg.
Well, to be fair, this is Galaxibirds by Firebird. There's a causal tie.
Why not call it Firebirds?
Firebird. Well, I don't know. It is. So, because obviously, as you said, it's playing on Galaxians, isn't it? So it's Galaxibirds, which I get the impression that this was just a game made for no other reason than just to sort of get a game under their, to sort of get a game out under their wing, so to speak, and show that they can make something and release something, which would probably have led... Because probably without this, maybe selling Parallax to Ocean would have been a harder sell. But having a game that's out and released, this is like, we've got a game, we've made it, we've finished it, we've got it published. We are obviously, a genuine software house. Genuine software makers, we can do this. So I see this as a step along the way to do that. And going through Firebird's budget range is that. And what they've made is essentially a parody of a stupid shoot 'em up, because there's nothing to, just wave after wave of crazy birds. I mean, I didn't get that far, but supposedly like the ball from Bounder appears as one of the ways. It's very, very tongue in cheek, and I don't think it's meant to be taken seriously. That doesn't forgive its faults, which, as you said, the bullets go too slow, but that's Galaxians. Your Galaxian bullet was always too bloody slow, I always found. There's an annoying tune. My comment on this was it's too chaotic to be dull, but it's also too chaotic to be much good. It's just, there's not much design here aside from, because there's obviously a routine to move the graphics across to the left, and then they come back on the right, but they come on with no real sense of anything, and it's just repeat, shoot, repeat, die. And you'll die a lot, and that's it. I don't know. I can't. It feels to me like there's some coherence here and there's some attempt here, but knowing them two and what they go on to do, it feels like this is a step along their career path that they needed to get out. And so,
I think so.
But I don't think it forgives it its faults that you listed, and I think you are bang on about. But I do think this is not meant to be taken seriously. It's a stupid game. And I think it's what it is. But it doesn't, a stupid game doesn't forgive
but at least
faults.
it's playable to a point, and it's only $1.99. And
exactly.
So it's not asking for 10 quid for the same privilege, which many of its brethren, its crappy brethren, have done. So at least it's not that. And like you say, if it's a parody, well, it's a parody. It's what it is. But I think you're right. I suspect this is how many games you had published? So they needed an answer to that question of promotion. So Galaxibirds is the answer.
Yeah, maybe. It'd be interesting. I don't know if you're still in contact with John, just to
absolutely.
Him.
I will. I'll text him
and just say Galaxibirds, eh? I'll just come across it and just to see what he says.
And after his message back was, "Who is this and why are you talking about Galaxibirds? You freak!"
Absolutely.
I'll say, "It's me."
The birds have been sent round to silence you, and all
I'll get attacked by them.
An all record of your podcast will be wiped from history. Anybody that's listened to it would be dead. Anybody that's ever heard of it, dead.
It could be a famously unknown brand tie-in between Galaxibirds and Birds custard.
Custard, yes, could be.
Yeah, so
I don't think it is.
Galaxibirds and Birds custard, but I think Birds is spelt wrong for that. And I'm just making up stuff.
You are. Let's move on. That's enough about Galaxibirds.
Move on.
No one's spoken about Galaxibirds.
And I'm glad we're moving on because the next game is something that I'm glad you got.
Yeah. Oh.
Jeepers creepers, where'd you get those eyes?
Yeah, so the next game, is this Nightwalker or is it the chess game? You be the judge. I don't know. It's one of them.
Mentioned this on gamesthatweren't.com, which is a really, really great website, by the way.
Yeah, it
which
is,
I think you've mentioned many times before. I think there's a book even, but it's mentioned there about the fact that this, I think it got either a very small release or no release as Nightwalker. So I don't know the lineage. I'm sure somebody out there will correct us on exactly how it became the chess game, which
makes more
I'm not even sure it is really. Well, I suppose it makes more sense. It's on a chess board, isn't it? So anyway, that's over to you.
Thanks. I have to say that we've looked at some very strange games in the 30-odd episodes we've done now, but this is one of the more bizarre ones that I've played. I remember seeing this in the magazine and wondering about it, but I never saw it anywhere, and I never played it, and I never had it. Not even in the multitude of, otherwise obtained games that we got. I never saw this anywhere. So you play a girl who is having chess dreams, or a man who's having chess dreams. So you play someone who's having chess dreams. We've all had lockdown dreams over the past year and a half or whatever, but now we're having chess dreams. So the game is essentially you see a 3D chessboard at the bottom of the screen, and you come on walking from one end to the other. The sprite is really strange, and it scales, but it's all over the place with a sort of a high-res overlay that don't quite get filled in properly, and it's very odd. So essentially what this game is, in the very first level, you have 5 pawns who have to make it from one end of this board to the back end, so you've got to walk into the screen. You do this 5 times essentially. The pawns are nowhere to be seen, they're just on a display at the bottom. You just got to avoid what there is bouncing around on the board is a knight. So it's a knight that moves around, and when it lands, for some reason you colour the board in blue as you walk. I didn't understand why.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's a reason for that.
Well, I couldn't see any reason. I thought at first I was supposed to colour the entire board in, but no. You just got to get the pawns across the other side. So when the knight lands, it will turn that square to red. Simply avoid them. Don't move very fast, and it's not very hard. You can get enough of them across. Once you've done it 5 times, and so you have a number of pawns across either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, it changes to a bishop who moves around, flashing squares in different order. So the black squares will flash from blue to red to green to silver and then black back through. Don't touch them when they're red. Simple as that, really. So stay on the white. You get nothing in that game for 2 in a bed. Then,
2 in a red.
2 in a red, yeah. Then there was a rook, I think, who turned the entire rows coloured. So stay off the entire road. And you're basically just trying to walk back and forward still, trying to move these pawns. I don't know why you've got to keep doing this. That's it. That's really it. There's no mechanics. You don't have anything to do other than walk across a chessboard. I went all Sean Connery, didn't I? A chessboard.
Chessboard. I play my shells.
I do. I got to avoid the red squares. And you wander back and forth, and that's it. And it becomes very dull very quickly. The actual visuals are okay. They're quite nice. They move nicely, and there's animated for even moving in diagonal ways. But it's a weird sprite that kind of like hurt my head to look at. It was like I was looking at something that wasn't quite in our dimension, that just didn't look quite, I don't know, something wrong. It's just weird. It's just a weird game. It's dull, it's odd, and eventually just really boring. And there's nothing more to say beyond walking back and forth across the chessboard, avoiding red coloured squares if you can. Did I miss anything?
No, it's exactly what it is. I just thought it was crappy nonsense. It neither played well nor particularly fair. There was no sense of progression, no sense of what the end goal was or what rationale was for doing this thing. Tied into some kind of nightmare thing, I think. And it was a re-release, I think, of a game that was already known to be shit. So it's just bad form to do that. It's just a re-release of a game.
£4 as well, what it? £4.
I don't think there's any fixes. Yeah, £4. Graphics rubbish, like you say, not quite finished properly. Maybe, I don't know. So no, it was awful. And interestingly, because we got originally the wrong game was in our share folder, wasn't it, for this? So did you actually play the other Nightwalker? It was a game where I ended up dealing heroin in that game. That was kind of harrowing. So I was like, God, this is scary. But thankfully it wasn't that, it was this alternative. Just rubbish. No, just another rubbish quasi-budget fiasco, this time with a really weird sense of, I'm not sure what was released by who and why and how this came to be. Nothing to speak of that made me ever want to return back to it or anything else, just rubbish. So avoid Nightwalker, aka the chess game, and you'll live a happy life, I think.
Yeah, you will. Don't have chess dreams, that's my advice. Because, you know, there might be about Barbara Dickinson and Elaine Page, and no one wants that.
Wasn't it good?
No,
so
it wasn't good. It was awful.
No, it wasn't.
Wasn't it fine? No, I told
it wasn't
you.
fine. Isn't
No,
it
it's
magic?
crap.
No.
But I may have got the chess game, but you got the last game of this episode.
Jeepers creepers, where'd you get those eyes?
We talked about
We
this,
We
didn't
looked at the Crapvert many moons ago because it was coming from the magic of electric dreams. It was coming from the Dream Factory, the Chess Dream Factory. There's a link.
Yeah.
So over to you here for Beer Belly Burt's Brew Biz. Ba 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 ba.
Beer belly birds. So this is the second massive dump on the chest of the C64 in this episode. So to explain the game as much as I'm going to, there's a zombie takeover of a beer factory, and it's up to Burt to wipe him out. Blah 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 blah. Shipping control. Blah blah blah. You have to explore the different departments, and zombies attempt to kill you. The long and short of it is it's a crappy flick screen platformer with real naff graphics. Horrible to control, and nothing else. It's out of time and place. It feels like a game, probably is a game that was made in 1983, 84. It was released in 1986 for some reason that is known only to Beer Belly Burt's Brew Biz and the team behind it and our friends at Electric Nightmares. Graphics are blocky with loads of brown again. What is it with the brown and the brown of the brown? It was just unpleasant and an overall crap experience. And I don't, and you can tell with a name like Beer Belly Burt's Brew Biz that somebody was, thinking, wow, this is really such a great name. And Beer Belly Burt's a great character. None of it works. None of it. It's derivative. I think there's 32 rooms inside this game as well. So it's not like there's loads and loads of room, or I think in each department there's 32 rooms. But it's just a platformer with things bouncing around and Burt bouncing around in there. And some of the air... So did you get played into it where you got the air vents and if you stand up and then Burt sort of goes flight... Oh, it's blown from one platform to the other. It just... No. Any game where I find myself being... I say this with hesitancy, being blown around... and just collecting keys. It had a vibe of booty about it, but not in a good way. Just terrible. Just, forget it. 32% was generous. $2.99's a rip-off. Forget it. Go and buy Warhawk if you're going to go budget this time around. Just get that. And I know I'd speak like it's out now in the next couple of days. No, time travel. If you're time traveling, just don't. If I'd have bought this back in 1986, and I wouldn't have because of the name, but if I had of, or if this had been bought for me, this is one of those games. You know what's going to happen.
You're bouncing down the stairs, Granny.
Exactly. I'm just going to show you something in the shed, and you're going to be there a while.
Look at this hammer. Look at this claw.
Yeah. It's like, have you seen that thing at the back of the shed? Oh, it's gone dark. Let me out. No, I won't be doing that for a while.
No, you need to learn your lesson,
Anyway,
Granny. Yeah. I don't even know where to start with this one. Crap platformer of some description in that horrible American Apple II style. It's a poor man's Ollie's Follies. Poor man's Ollie's Follies, and that's no praise. Awful controls with such slow turning and bullets that you can almost outrun. It says, I'm happy that this brew biz went out of business and Burt was hopefully found dead in a ditch with nothing but a barrel around him. That's what I put.
Yes, I believe at this point you may have been feeling quite frustrated.
I hated it. I hated every moment of this horrible game.
Awful.
It's just a horrible game. It just felt awful in every respect. It has that pseudo 3D look that I said that Ollie's Follies had. But Ollie's Follies was all right. This was crap. And yes, people made this should feel bad about themselves. I don't say that about many games, but this was a crap idea, crappily done crap. That felt good.
Creating games that are blocky and brown is no way to go through life.
It's really not. It's really not. It was friggin' awful. I just hate the way it controlled. Like, I know from making simple platformers, and I know I do it in Unity, so it does a lot for you, but there's certain things that you just need to do, and I've seen students do the same thing, which is they make bullets that are the same speed as them. So when they shoot, they wonder where the bullets are, and I'm like, well, it's behind you, because it's just you've given the bullet the same speed as you idiot. stop moving, and then it'll come
Yeah.
out. Oh, right, yeah, I see that.
Yep.
So, but this does that. It's like, at some point when you're making this, you go, that bullet speed could do with maybe a couple of extra
Tweak
units.
it.
Just, you know.
Yeah. Let's add a +2 to that instead of
Yeah,
a +1.
that's all you got.
Or a plus.
It's just garbage.
It is. You know, I was thinking I have had blockier and browner turds, and I've had more fun and a better experience dropping those kids in
I've
the
had
pool.
turds that have come at me faster than those bullets are coming out of him.
Yes. Well, see, you've been +1 or 2.
Well, they were +3'd. They were out.
Someone poked your code good and proper.
Absolutely. I wasn't a freshman student. There was nothing fresh about that.
No. Your pokes were definitely, your 53280s were definitely (1) or (2).
They certainly were. They were moving at a rapid pace, and they would have taken down anything that they hit.
Yes, to be fair, I'll vouch for that because I've had to clean up the mess from many toilets that you've befouled.
What can I say? It's my calling card.
And those bog-blocking turds the size of submarines, unwelcome now, unwelcome in the past, and just unwelcome, but better than this game.
Yeah, I'm glad it's dead in the ditch.
I would rather strap on some marigolds and punch one of your shits down the toilet than play that game. And I've had to do that several times, let me tell you. And sometimes the gloves were never returned. They just went with the whole situation. I was lucky I kept my hand, in all honesty.
He's lost nails.
Well, I've got hairy hands, but one time it just came out bald, a bit like in From Beyond. Just my hands were just completely sucked of all hair.
Completely pretorious.
So, thankfully, I didn't grow hand penises, as far as I'm aware.
Well, there's always time.
That's the side effect. I don't want that side effect.
Oh God, let's finish this episode. It's been going on for 7 years.
And we're talking about hand penises. We need to quickly end it and end it quick.
Right. That is the last game, I think, isn't it? For this one. Jesus
It is
Christ.
for this episode. Yeah, it's a corker.
Massive, just like what he had to clear out the toilet.
It is.
What have we done today? We've looked
huge,
at Coronation Street, Salem's Lot.
We are revisiting that. I'm sorry, but we are revisiting that at some point. That might even be something that ends up in some extra.
We'll see.
I don't know.
Right, what games did we look at today? We looked at Ghosts and Goblins, Mission AD, Caverns of Eriban, and Night Games. I get a feeling that this episode was front-loaded.
Yes.
Then we looked at Ninja Master and Jet Strike Mission. Well, obviously, we had all our music stuff. We looked at Floyd the Droid, Arac, Danger Mouse in Double Trouble, Warhawk, Galaxibirds, The Chess Game, and finally, Beer Belly Burt's Brew Biz. Right, that's that for this episode. That's the first half of September. There were loads of games in September, so we've got pretty much exactly the same coming next week. What are we looking at? Woo. I'm not going to tell you them all, but we are looking at Dragon's Lair. We are looking at Split Personalities. We've obviously got Film and TV. There's loads more Cheapest Creepers. That inexplicably probably might even be worse than this week's. We've got Way of the Tiger, which we mentioned, another droid game simply called Droids. We've got the Trap demo, and finally
with the game attached, yeah, we've got that.
And Formula One Simulator. Yeah, that's all coming next week, along with obviously films and TV. So I think that's about it. Yeah, I can't think of anything more. My brain's going to mush right now.
No. We've been stretched.
It really has sort of thing. So all that's left to say is I have been Adrian Mills.
I have been Graham Raddings.
And you have been listening to Zapped to the Past. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zap to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zap to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings, and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, The Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.